And okay, you guys ready? I'm not sure who's here with IT, but if you could take us live, that'd be great.
Yes, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, we're live.
Thank you. At 1:06, I'm calling to order the budget hearings for Thursday, April 25th. And if we could get a roll call, please.
Certainly, Madam Chair. Councillor Cassett.
Here.
Councillor Faulkner.
Here.
Councillor Lee Garcia is en route.
He's en route, yes.
Councillor Lindell. Chair Romero Worth.
I am here.
Madam Chair, you have a quorum.
Terrific. We have a number of budgets to hear today. Do we have any changes to the agenda?
Madam Chair, no changes from staff.
Great. Looks like we have the Community Health and Safety Department, the Police Department, and the Fire Department. And oh yeah, we do need a motion to approve the agenda. Thank you.
Move to approve.
Motion and a second to approve the agenda. All those in favor, aye. Anybody opposed? That motion passes. Do we need to talk about next week? Should we do that here or at the end or?
Madam Chair, we can do that whenever you'd like. We can maybe at the end.
Yeah, maybe at the end so that we have Councillor Garcia here too. So, okay, because, yeah, all right. So without further ado, we will go to the Community Health and Safety Department, and I'll let you all handle this however you want, introduce staff as need be, and welcome Mr. City Manager. I see you sitting in, and I know you'll give an explanation for that, and I'd just say take it away in whatever manner you all want to handle it.
Thank you, Madam Chair. It's nice to be back down here. So I'm here today. I think you all recall that the Community Health and Safety Director, Kira Ochoa, separated from the city to go work for the governor as a Deputy Cabinet Secretary. We miss her. We love her. We wish her well. We are still in the process of hiring a full-time permanent Community Health and Safety Director. We're hoping that will come to a conclusion quite soon. In the interim, I have been serving as the time card signer, acting-ish director of the department. The reason that's been attainable and so successful has been the extraordinary leadership team that is made up of Director Williams, Director Sanchez Tucker, Chief Joy, and Chief Moya, who are all doing an extraordinary job. And so for those who are watching at home, I always like to say that because the counselors do that. The Community Health and Safety Department was made a number of years ago that includes these departments to work collaboratively towards solutions for the community. I'm going to keep my part short. I'm just here to sort of tee it up as a group entity. Director Sanchez Tucker is here on behalf of Community Services, going to go first. We'll work department by department, and I will let them do their introductions as they deem necessary. But I just want to flag this is an extraordinary group of leaders, of team members who are genuinely on the front lines of our community, whether it's at the library, at the pool, or when someone calls 911 and needs a responder of some sort and some assistance. When you add in the great work that Director Williams is doing in terms of emergency management and making sure that we're ready for the inevitable things that do happen in communities, this really is the very best of the city of Santa Fe. And with that, I will turn it over to Director Sanchez Tucker. I'm going to escape to my normal spot so I can multitask, but I'm here if you need any questions from me as well. Okay, go get them.
Thank you and welcome, Director Sanchez Tucker.
Thank you, Chair, Madam Chair, and Councilors. I'm pleased to present the overview of the Community Services FY25 budget. Today with me, I have our incredibly talented and dedicated division directors to present the overviews of their division goals and accomplishments. And I would like to introduce the newest member of our team, Marcela Apodaca. She is our Business Operations Manager for the Community Health and Safety Department and the newest member to our team. I have Margaret Neal, our Library Division Director, Brian Stinnett, our Recreation Division Director, Julie Sanchez, Youth and Family Services Director, and unfortunately, Senior Services Division Director Manuel Sanchez could not be with us today. He's ill, and I will present the information for him on senior services. So the mission of the communities, you want to, our slides? Thank you. The mission of the Community Services Department is to provide a broad spectrum of activities and resources to support and engage the community, especially those most in need, creating programs and policies to improve quality of life for all. All divisions align to address the social determinants of health, access to health, behavioral health care, housing, food, transportation, personal safety, education, childcare, physical activity, social supports, and employment. And this makes up the foundation of health and well-being for our community. So each day, our amazing, talented, and dedicated staff do an excellent job carrying out this mission. 4,000 to 5,000 customers visit our facilities and use our services each day, from the youngest community member participating in a pajama story time or one of our youth programs, our most fragile elders receiving home-delivered meals, staying fit and healthy at one of our recreation facilities, or calling 211 or Connect to be connected to services. The Community Service Department is large, with 220 positions across divisions. This number increases in the summer when we hire temp employees to carry out our youth programs and supplement staffing at our seasonal pool. I'd like to express my gratitude to all of our employees and thank them for the work they do. They are the heart, making connections with those that they serve. So just a high-level overview of what's been taking place in the department. Some of the key hires we have made, we've hired a new program manager in Youth and Family Services to bolster our programs that we provide, Kristen Woods, and a new collection manager was hired in libraries, Raquel Martinez. And we are working to hire key vacancies, our ice arena and aquatics manager, and additional key positions in Youth and Family Services are key vacancies that we need to fill, as well as a contracts administrator in our libraries. We're still hiring for summer temp staff, including lifeguards, swim instructors, and our teen center program staff. So if you can please help get the word out about these positions. We've been doing a lot of recruiting and innovative ways of thinking about how we can recruit for summer help. Community Services had a very productive year and completed some significant long-term projects that improve our quality of life. And I'd like to emphasize a few of these projects, and our division directors will provide greater detail. We successfully opened the Teen Center, an entirely new facility and program. We hired and trained staff, created policies for operations, and working with IT, the Teen Center was the first facility to implement a new customer management system software. Working with IT and the communications department, the recreation department will implement the new software system for the coming months at the rest of the recreation sites. And this system will drastically improve our customer experience and communication and marketing with our customers. The Safe Outdoor Space was successfully implemented in partnership with Christ Lutheran Church and the LifeLink. We were able to support for outreach services with implementing a mobile hygiene unit lease. We have broken ground on the expansion of the Meg Senior Center. We're successfully managing ARPA projects that Director Julie Sanchez is overseeing. We finalized a historic structures assessment and the stabilization of the historic main library building. Our youth program is highly successful and deserves recognition for the support for Santa Fe families in providing quality, safe care in the summer. We have 540 slots available this year, and the program registration slots filled in 20 minutes. So you can see the need in our community for safe, affordable childcare. And then we hope to serve 50 teens in our teen program that will be housed out at the Teen Center, and we're still hiring for those positions. So we're working on serving more youth in our community. We'll also have the Teen Center available for drop-in for the summer as well. And a couple of key projects that are on the horizon for the upcoming fiscal year. We will identify, we'll begin a plan to to a project to plan and identify a location for a new senior center in Santa Fe. We'll work collaboratively with all city departments to begin the first phases of an application to become designated an AARP age-friendly community. We're finalizing a feasibility study to plan for a non-congregate shelter. And we need to study our recreation facility needs, programs, and fees so that we can make more data-driven and community-supported decisions regarding our recreation programs. We will also use additional state funds to complete teen center enhancement projects and begin a project to create a plan for the new 21st century Santa Fe Public Library at Vogelson. The library has renewed interest in the career online high school with 2 new students joining the program. And on completion, they will receive a high school diploma. And the library is also partnering with the Economic Development Department to share resources and support local business needs. Our department thrives because of the community partnerships that we develop and how we support each other's divisions. We recently had a successful partnership with the library's NEA Big Read and the Santa Fe Teen Center to hold the kickoff this year for the Big Read. And this is just only one example of how our department leverages resources and works across city departments to serve the community. We continue to update and innovate services to provide the best customer experiences for our community. And just a little bit about leveraging our budget. We received a $75,000 New Mexico Grown Grant to provide locally grown food at our senior centers. There will be an announcement of a $300,000 juvenile justice grant to augment our work on preventing youth violence. For Kids Golf Tournament, we raise funds to provide youth scholarships for our recreation programs. And the Friends of the Santa Fe Public Library provide $200,000 annually to support library programs. So seeking additional funds, we'll also seek additional funds to continue work on preservation work on the main library. And our youth programs would not be possible without a partnership with the Santa Fe Public Schools, allowing us to use their facilities. Also, our youth and teen programs partner with the Community Educators Network to supplement programs throughout the summer. This year, CEN has a grant with the Wallace Foundation, and we are partnering with them to provide training and opportunities and programs to support youth leadership and development. So partnerships and leveraging funds are a big part of how we're so successful in our department. With that, I will move on to the next slide. And I'd like to ask Library Division Director Margaret Neal to come forward and talk about the library. Thank you.
I don't think it's on. Is the green light on? And then pull it towards you if you can. We can hear you in the chamber, but anybody online can't unless you're on the mic. So sorry about that.
No problem. Technology problems, I can handle that. Good afternoon. Thank you for all of the support that the library has gotten over the past year. Some of our division highlights that Maria touched on that are in the slide that you see before you. We have seen growth in most of our areas, if not all of them. Circulation went up 19%. The number of public programs that we offered, primarily to adults, teens, and all ages, went up 49%. And there was a 119% increase in the number of people attending library programs. As Maria mentioned, we do work a lot with our community partners. One of our partnerships this year was with Free Flow New Mexico to provide free period products to the public. We've also worked with Beowulf, the Georgia O'Keeffe Museum, Santa Fe Opera to bring programs to kids, fun and innovative and exciting programs, and give them a head start in life and to love art. And we are working still, as Director Sanchez Tucker said, about upgrading and maintaining main library. They're actually finishing paving the parking lot today. We're very excited about it. And so overall, what I can say is that the library has seen tremendous growth post-COVID, and the trajectory is still moving upwards, and we're very happy about that. We are in the middle of our big read, and right after that, we jump straight into summer reading. So this is kind of our chaotic time of year, but it's a very active time of year and where we reach a lot of the community. So we are in the process of working on a 2 to 3 year strategic plan with the Library Advisory Board to identify more community stakeholders, as well as to identify where we want to go in the next 3 to 5 years in terms of programming, collections, and just overall direction of mission, values, and goals. And one of those is to work with the community more in areas such as workforce development. So the program that Director Sanchez Tucker mentioned, the Career Online High School, is an opportunity for somebody to get their high school degree, but also have vocational training. So for example, 2 of the students that we're working with now are going to get their high school diploma plus vocational training in the hospitality industry. This is something we're working on with the La Fonda Foundation. And we're hoping to add more students moving forward and giving them that opportunity plus extra training for that career field, which I think is very important. There are other vocations, but this is the one we're focusing on right now because Santa Fe has many, many people in the hospitality industry. We're also reinvigorating or reintroducing our relationship with PNM, the Penitentiary of New Mexico, and the County Detention Center to provide resources and reentry resources. And actually, we are in the middle of hosting a book club with them, reading Circe, our big read book. And we're going to be continuing doing outreach and programs with PNM and the detention center. And let's see, we work a lot with community agencies such as the Food Depot, which has a stop at Southside Library. We are working with the Teen Center a lot in collaboration with, and we're looking forward to the summer and seeing all the back and forth between the 2 locations. We are also looking at other ways that we can help senior programs. Currently we're doing outreach to seniors in senior homes, sort of beyond what senior programs already does. And we're getting them excited and showing them all the new technology and all the things they can do with the library. And we are also working on a program for early childhood literacy through Lena, which helps parents learn how to communicate with their child and encourage talking and reading with young children so that they have a better odds of success in the future. That's just kind of a basic snapshot of everything we're doing. And we're really excited about just moving forward. We have 2 program managers now, and we just brought someone on board who is extremely excited to jump in and get to know all of our community partners, reestablish relationships, and start moving forward with more programming for families.
Great. So I think what we'll do is we'll just kind of like we did yesterday, we'll go through the different component parts of the department and then circle back with the committee for questions. They may jump in if there's a burning question that needs to be answered in the moment, but that seemed to work okay yesterday. So thank you.
Please. I'd like to ask Director Brian Stinnett to come forward and talk about the Recreation Division highlights and accomplishments.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair and council members. I'm Brian Stinnett, the Recreation Division Director. I'd like to point out a few members of my team that are actually here today that are supporting us during this brief presentation. We have our Youth Program Manager, Melissa Bustos, our Interim Aquatics Manager, Abby Smith, and we have one of our admin managers, Susanna Ceja, that are here today. Some of our program highlights or division highlights for the past year are we have roughly about 20 vacancies right now. 22, 23, we are at about a 35% vacancy rate. Within the last year, we've dropped that down to about a 20% vacancy rate. We're looking to hire positions that are currently in the workflow right now. Some of those in lifeguards, our youth programs, and our other recreation specific positions. A lot of our highlights throughout the year, our youth programs, I'll start off with them. We've served 511 summer youth last summer in 2023, which created over 73 temp summer jobs for youth and young adults. Our teen center opened up in the fall of 2023. We had at the time in our first 3 months, 500 registrants for that program and attendees. That has since gone up to about 700 registrants and average of about 65 to 70 attendees per night over at our teen center as it opened up. We've successfully moved 8 lifeguard trainees into full-time or part-time roles over the past year. So that has been a success as one of our recruitment and retention methods for aquatics and lifeguards. We've also created within the past year 8 additional temp positions so that some of our youth can move between full and part-time depending on their season and schedule so that we're not losing staff that can't meet that requirement of 16 or more hours. So very good success in our aquatics division for those types of positions. Our leagues have increased in terms of participation. We've gone up to 28 adult basketball teams for this season that's going on right now, as well as our hockey league has grown almost doubled in the past year with 5 A league, 6 B, and 6 C leagues, and we actually created a D league. So we work in unison with some of our hockey user groups to get our ice arena being used to its full potential. Another success for the year has been our Mayor's Youth Advisory Board. As I'm the liaison for that, they've were critical in opening of the teen center as well as getting their subcommittees started and going for steering that steering the teen center. And they also completed the youth symposium in October and November. So that report's just about ready to come out with all the data that they found about what youth want and need in the city of Santa Fe. Some of our averages from fall through spring, what we like to call our less busy time, we serve about 819 patrons daily, and data was collected over the past year, and that's across all of our sites, GCCC, Fort Marcy, Salvador Perez, youth programs, Bicentennial Pool. Our summer usage balloons up to about 1,395. This was from last year, which brings us to about 350,000 patrons served throughout the year, not including about 120 and 150 additional that come into our facilities to watch games, to be a part of their children's activities and everything else. We've utilized some community partners, Work-Based Learning and Workforce Solutions through their apprentice and internship programs. We've successfully had 4 interns through the Work-Based Learning who have then turned into 2 full-time and part-time employees within the Recreation Division. As well as Workforce Solutions, we've worked with them in their program with 3 apprentices, and 2 of them have now applied and have been accepted for our full-time positions for the summer. So we're doing really well on recruitment and building our vacancy rate, and those are the highlights we have for recreation. Some of our goals, I spoke to it a little bit, are our aquatic hiring, trying to get that vacancy rate down so that we can open all of our 4 facilities. We currently are very close to opening a 3rd. We are about 3 lifeguards short from being able to open the 3rd pool over the summer. We've increased our youth program participation, coinciding with the opening of the teen center. The teen center is now taking the teen center program, which vacated an additional 100 youth program participants to try to get up to about 600 for this summer. We're working on increasing our athletic offerings. We made that mention of how our leagues have grown. This time we worked with a contractor to get officials in. So we've been creative with our budget and how we utilize that so that we can pay our officials and our monitors market rate so that we can grow our leagues and recreation opportunities. Some of the other infrastructure projects, ice arena are some specific ones. As we had that closure in the fall, we were able to overcome that hurdle temporarily. We are expecting to replace our HVAC systems in the ice arena within this summer timeframe so that we can better ensure that we don't have shutdowns or anything like that. We've identified quite a few projects in aquatics from GCCC specifically that has some aging infrastructure that we're working on gathering information and quotes so that we can get those part of our plan to get rectified in those facilities. And then our teen center offerings and hours, we're working hard right now to recruit and hire for the teen center so that we can get the maximum capacity. Hopefully we can increase that amount of summer program from 50 to 100. That's dependent on staffing. And then if we can hire for the summer, we can also offer full operating hours for drop-ins for the teens over the summer. And then we're looking to see how we can expand into a little bit more weekend time and as we get back into the school year. So those are some of our program goals for the upcoming year.
Thank you.
I'd like to call myself up to present the senior services division highlights. You know, our senior centers they're full of life, they're bustling. We have a growing aging population. And this is going to put pressure on our services and how we serve seniors into the future as we're all aging and getting older and using services and needing different types of services. So you can see from our numbers, you know, just the incredible use at our senior centers, the incredible need for both congregate meals, socialization, learning activities, and also, you know, the important services we provide to caregivers through our respite and home care services, as well as our services providing home delivered meals, which are essential to keeping some folks in their homes. So the services we provide can't be understated. You know, our volunteer program is felt throughout the community. We have volunteers working in schools, in nonprofit organizations. And I just wanted to highlight quickly one program that our volunteers participated in was the cleanup of the Guadalupe Cemetery. They've been working this past year to really beautify this space as a final resting place and a historic cemetery that needs to be cleaned and protected and preserved. And so we've worked with the Old Santa Fe Association, and our volunteers have been out there on weekends cleaning up. It's a really beautiful project. And so some of these things that our volunteers are doing throughout the community are not always recognized, but they really do make an impact in their day-to-day serving our community. And, you know, we have some big goals in senior services this next year. So we will be working to become an age-friendly community. And this really goes to support, you know, our policies and how we make sure that our city includes everybody, that we're accessible for everybody of all ages. And so this really will be an inclusive effort from all city departments, because every department has a piece in making sure that we're accessible, age-friendly, and that we're providing these services. And so our work to plan a new senior center, hopefully these two projects will work well together, because they can inform the information and data we receive for each program, and then really look forward to how we plan for our seniors into the future, into the next 20 years. And then we'll increase our activities at our senior center. We continue to do so. We need to do more technology programs. So we're looking into teen years and bringing that program back and making sure that seniors are able to navigate the technology world. Also, housing isn't an issue for seniors. And so looking at throughout our division and our department, how we can help seniors navigate housing issues as they arise, because rising rents, lack of affordable housing for seniors are issues that I see happening and taking place in the forefront of our senior community. So we have a lot of big programs, a lot of big projects that will take place to support our seniors in the community, but we're really looking forward to working on these projects. I'll be available to answer any questions.
Thank you.
Director Julie Sanchez, our Youth and Family Services Division Director. And don't let that name fool you. Youth and Family Services is broad, and it provides so many innovative social programs that really meet the needs of our communities. Thank you, Julie.
Thank you all. Can you hear me? Oh, there we go. Thank you all. So when I put together this slideshow, I was kind of in a little bit of a what I would say, difficult mind space. So I actually didn't really list all of the major accomplishments because we have so many that we've had over the last year that I would love to highlight. And I would also love to highlight Kristen Woods, who's our newest program manager who came on staff. I like to say that the Youth and Family Services Division is a small but mighty division. We have a total of 10 and a half staff. We do have one part-time staff. And hopefully in this new fiscal year, we'll get 3 new positions based on some new grant funding that we're bringing in. Currently, the division staff oversee close to 100 contracts annually. Our 5 biggest priority areas in the city are safety, which is community youth violence, housing, which is homeless services and solutions, well-being, our care coordination and navigation services, our economic, which is economic justice and our cash transfer programs, and then of course, education, which right now we're focused on early child care solutions. We're also working on, and Counselor Lindell, I always think about you because you always bring this up, but making sure that we're using data, collecting data, and using data to make sure that we inform our decisions, not only with funding, but also on building programs and strategies for the city. Our major accomplishments, of course, as highlighted by Director Sanchez Tucker, we did receive our largest CYFD grant to date, which is around $300,000. It's to set up a day reporting center. It also could be used to hire full-time staff, and then also to continue our juvenile justice and youth violence work. We've served nearly 2,000 city and county residents with our innovative cash transfer programs. That includes one-time eviction prevention, our ongoing guaranteed income pilot project, and all of those. And that's funded through our ARPA funds. We also successfully set up our first pallet village, which currently is housing 13 residents and 6 pets. We've executed 9 contracts that are based on building an infrastructure and efficiency pipeline for domestic violence survivors. And we're working towards an available on-call 24/7 service for those individuals. And we're working in partnership with Santa Fe Police Department on building that pipeline. We've also finalized an RFP that's going to be our youth pilot project that's gonna be working with high-risk youth. Just had a meeting with my consultant right before this, fleshing out the final details, but working with Santa Fe Police Department on working with young people who are at high risk for gang and gun violence. And then of course we have our usual funding from our Human Services and Children and Youth Commission, which is around 4 million annually. And then of course now to date, Connect has helped, or Connect Network, which is our care coordination network, which is accessible through 211, has helped close to 10,000 people since it was set up in 2021. So those are our major accomplishments. And we do have some major goals that we want to meet in the next fiscal year. Some of these are outdated. We did rehome the Park Ranger program, which is now in parks. They're fully staffed up and are incredibly successful in our community in response to encampments. We are going to continue to fund and also look at really strategically rehoming the city's only non-congregate, well, actually the city's second non-congregate shelter, which is Consuelo's Place. They continue to have an exit rate of about 25 to 30% into permanent housing, which is incredible for that kind of a shelter program. And then we're going to continue to give out funding. Also leveraging our ARPA money and working with our current programs to make sure that once our ARPA money is done, that those programs continue. So we worked in collaboration with the Santa Fe Community College on a federal grant that they're writing through the Department of Labor to ensure that that program continues. Same with the work-based learning program. And we have lots and lots of goals on each of our program areas. So I don't want to take up too much time. But I will say, Emily, we've dedicated 77% of our ARPA money as of this morning. And so we'll continue to get that down to, of course, my goal is 100%, but maybe 99.5%. So that's my goal. So yeah, there we go.
Thank you. Okay, terrific. Questions from the committee? I know there are some important work, broad spectrum of work. And I will refrain from jumping in to be the first. I will wait for my. All right, Counselor Faulkner. No, we haven't done them yet. All right, Counselor Cassett.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair, and thank you to the entire department. I have just a couple of questions about some expansions and something written in the budget book that I hadn't heard of. The Senior Olympic Program, can I get some more information on what this is? What was so fascinating about the budget book was there were so many programs that were listed here that I wasn't aware of. And so how we continue to get these out into the public, it sounds like some really wonderful social opportunities just across the board at all ages. So wanted to hear a little bit more about the Senior Olympic Program, as this was a new one to me.
Madam Chair and Counselor Cassett, the Senior Olympics program, I'm not even sure how many years that's been taking place, but this year, we have a really great partnership. This is one of those examples where it shows our work with our seniors. The Senior Olympics is a statewide program, might even be nationwide, but we work with the state and we plan programs, and there's activities, there's swimming, there's basketball. I can't even, Brian, do you have idea about how many participants we've had this year? But it's just a really great program, and it's wonderful to partner with our senior services staff and our recreation division to make it happen. Do you have any other things you'd like to say about the Senior Olympics?
Yes, we just wrapped up our Senior Olympics swimming event this past Saturday up at GCCC. So they generally will take place at GCCC or Fort Marcy. Senior Olympics pairs with us. So I think we had about 55 to 60 swimmers. About 55 to 60 swimmers. And then throughout the year, the whole different events, volleyball, pickleball, basketball, and various sports and activities, Senior Olympics.
Wonderful. Well, thank you. It's really wonderful to hear about those opportunities, both for the social and physical health. We know that one of the parts of healthy aging is that, and obviously this is why senior centers are important, but that social component of finding ways for people to interact. And then of course, obviously keeping physically healthy is one of my public health passions. So I was really excited to see that listed. I'm surprised I haven't heard of it, but I'm happy that it's occurring. Looking at some of the dollars, I know that we're looking at, again, I know Counselor Lindell brought this up at the very beginning, but this looks like a big number of a decrease of $4.7 million or 10% of the budget. I'm assuming a lot of that's going to be ARPA dollars, and some of it, because we had a lot of one-time money in this department. This was one of the departments that a lot of those grants, a lot of ARPA dollars went through. And so I did just want to give you an opportunity to speak to that discrepancy in what we're seeing in the budget.
Thank you, Madam Chair and Counselor Cassett. That is a great question. I knew that that was one that it looks like an alarming number. However, that number reflects a $2 million funding that we had in the budget this year to set aside for the purchase of to support the purchase of a non-congregate shelter as we match funds that we have received. So that will be carry forward. So it's not reflected. And then there was a subsidy to the teen center formerly done as a transfer from Rec General Fund, but now it's covered from a different fund. So it's one of those transfers. And the budget team, if you have more specific questions, if there's anything else you'd like to add about that, but we really weren't cut by that large of an amount.
Yeah, that's what I assumed, and so wanted to really have the opportunity both for us and the public to understand, because of course community services is such an important department that provides such important services and really giving us that social piece. So thank you for giving us more information on that. I'm looking at the $14,200 in youth programming. I see, Art Smart is in there, Wildlife Center, Children's Museum. About how many organizations do we support for youth programming? And on average, how big are those grants to them?
This is actually contracts with those organizations to
Okay.
provide services for our youth program. So the Community Educators Network is one that they bring in community educators from all different museums and they provide activities. So it really helps us supplement the programs and activities that the staff are able to provide, and so that we're providing unique and interesting, engaging activities during our programs for the summer. So that's actually contracting with these organizations to provide these programs.
I see. Okay, wonderful. Next, I saw there was a piece about enhancing programs for communities in need, such as workforce development, education, outreach services to incarcerated persons, improve focus on literacy, support to low-income family, et cetera, et cetera. We generally do not provide direct service, and I'm curious, we're not moving into the direct service realm. This are still going to be basically, again, contracts, grants, partnerships that we have with community members or community organizations that are already doing this work.
Yes, that's correct. Thank you, Madam Chair and Councilor Cassett. And just that we can provide contractors or other community partners to come in and provide services at our locations, and just develop the way we develop our community partners to broaden those areas of emphasis that we want to focus on.
Okay, and also utilizing our libraries, rec centers as those points of access.
Yes, absolutely.
And I know our libraries, and I would imagine our teen centers probably, or I'm sorry, our teen center as well, and senior centers. Do we really utilize rec as a gateway into some of this programming? And I'm curious if we could.
Thank you, Madam Chair and Councilor Cassett. In the past, I don't think we utilized rec as much, but now just with our synergy in our department and looking at different ways, our Chavez Center is a great facility. We've had teen art programs there. Of course, the teen center is much more than recreation. It's also leadership and development and exploring new opportunities. So, there's sewing there. And so I think there's a new way of thinking about recreation and working together to make sure that those facilities are also providing different outlets and activities.
Okay, yeah, wonderful. Glad to hear it. I think as many doors as possible in is wonderful. I have a couple questions about the library. If you will come on over, Dr. Neal. Thank you. One question I have is we frequently use the term 21st century public library, and we say it a lot, but we don't define it and talk about what actually that means, when we're putting these investments into Fogelson. I know you touched on it a little bit, but I would just love some more information. When that phrase is being utilized, what can the community expect from this investment as we revitalize Fogelson?
Well, it's kind of multifaceted. The library itself has always been sort of that access, as you said, access point for services. So as we move forward, we're looking at libraries in a slightly different way, rather than the traditional books and story time and things, and moving into more of like a community center. And I think now that we're kind of out from COVID, we're also discovering that people are really searching for a sense of community. So that has been part of the discussion with Fogelson in creating a space. It's not just the library, but it is a community center that gives people access to not only information from us, but information from community partners, gives them the space. We have a lot of requests for space, meetings, events. And so the way we're looking at it now, a 21st century library is like a library, but also, and so it encompasses kind of everything in the community services department, because we're not just looking at traditional services, we're looking at a wider array of partnerships and opportunities.
And remind me, when we talk about Fogelson, there's kind of like a Fogelson complex. So there's the forum right over there to the facing library to the left. And then I believe is there a museum right next door to it?
It's gallery space and
And so are those going to be part of the Fogelson like complex? Or are we going to be running those as part of this 21st Century Library centered on Fogelson?
yes, they're part of that.
Okay, wonderful. The other question I have, maybe it's more of a comment, maybe it's more of an encouragement. I talk about this every year, but we serve about 25% of our patrons are in the county. And I know that the county does provide some dollars, but I know especially for digital materials, it costs money to get more digital materials. And we frequently, how do we rework this with the county? I know one of your library advisory board members, who happens to be one of my book club member friends. But she's looking into this, but I just always like to make that point because we provide these services not just for city residents, and same for recreation. We provide them for the county. We do not bar anybody out because they're not within the boundaries of the city. I think that's really important for the public to know that we are serving beyond the city and providing these services for anybody in the county. And I'm glad that we partner with the county. I want to continue to see how we can really work with the county in enhancing these, because as we know, these are expensive services that are so crucial, so important to the community. So I think I wanted to make sure that was noted. And it looks like City Manager Blair has something to say to me about this. None? Okay. So thank you. Oh, hi, Andy.
Madam Chair, Councilor Cassidy, I'm so glad you brought that up because that is something that I think your book club friends should know, is that not only do we provide recreation to the services to the county and receive no recompense from the county in any way for that, but their so-called contribution to the Southside Library has been unchanged since the library began. It wasn't really sufficient to begin with. Every year that goes by, it is less and less sufficient. So I think that's really a point that needs to be made to our county friends, that if you have a lot of people coming here and getting services for free, you really need to be helping us support them.
Wonderful. Yeah, thank
Very,
you.
very
She
glad
gave
you
me a
brought
lot
that
of
up.
fun data, like county residents make up 24% of our patron base. Last year, the library's total budget was 5.6. County contributed 25,000, which is less than 1% of the total budget.
It's a joke.
Yeah.
It's literally a joke.
Thank you, Andy, for putting the words. saying what I said.
Thank you for bringing that up.
Of course, anytime. One last question, and then I will be done, Madam Chair.
And Madam Chair, if I can weigh in at some point as well.
Glad I brought up a hot topic.
And apparently I need a gavel. City Manager Blair.
Thank you, Madam Chair, Councilor Cassett, for that question. It's not a joke. And one thing that we are planning to do once we get caught up with our audit in 14 days and 3 hours and 22 minutes is to do a comprehensive review of, did I change the date? It might have been too many days. I'll look at my countdown calendar. In May, I'll do two things at once. We're going to do a comprehensive review of the services being, 19 days, 22 hours and 5 minutes, 19 days. We're going to do a comprehensive review to avoid one-offing the county and look at what services are being provided to non-residents, and are we charging an appropriate 21st century 2024 amount for those services, whether it's people who are not city residents using the pools, using the rec centers, using the library, using the senior centers, using fill in the blank.
Parks.
Well, I was told they won't let me put toll gates up at the parks, but yes. And so I think we're going to try to look at this in a way that is collaborative, cooperative, and equitable, but do it so seriously and ensure that the city is getting funded for the things that we're providing in a real and equitable way. But this is something that we're aware of, something we're looking at, but it is something that we do take seriously.
Wonderful, thank you. And I want to be very clear. I think it is so wonderful that we have these services available to residents in the county. Obviously, where the actual boundaries of the city and the county are, nobody, they don't know where that is usually, except for when elections come and they realize. And they are members of our community. So however we can collaborate with the county to make sure that we are continuing to provide these robust services for every member of our community, regardless of where they fall within the boundaries of the city or not. So I'm very glad that that is going to be undertaken soon.
Madam Chair, Counselor Cassidy, I just wanted to let you know that I did have a very good meeting with the new Assistant Community Services Director for the county. And we're talking about, emergency preparedness and how we might share resources and just forward thinking. So I think, we can talk about how we can develop those relationships and, utilize each other's resources to provide more for the community.
Right. And we do also have a really wonderful base with the Connect program. I mean, that is a wonderful example of how we have partnered very successfully with the county to create very important services and opportunities for the city. So we already have the base there. I'm glad to build upon it, but we have a lot of things that we need to pay for, and we have a lot of need. And so how we can get that assistance is important. My last question has to do with ARPA. So this is maybe for Director Sanchez, which is that we have started a number of really wonderful programs that we had 3 years of ARPA funding. And one of the things listed here is how we find some external funding streams to sustain ARPA funded programs. Has there been any progress on that? Obviously, I am particularly interested in Apprende, the child care workforce development program at the community college. But I know that there are a number of other programs that we've found to be quite valuable. And what do we do now that we know that we're going to be having to find replacements for the ARPA streams?
Madam Chair, Counselor Cassett, that's a great question. And over the last couple of months, I'll give the Apprende program as an example. They are really working hard to bring in additional foundation money, but then also applying for federal streams. So I worked with Crystal, also a Sanchez, on doing not a letter of intent, a letter of support, as well as reviewing their application. And so that'll be a pretty hefty multi-year grant should they get it. And that'll be a good offboarding point for as the ARPA money starts to dwindle, they'll be able to supplement it with that funding. They're also looking at different state grants. They've approached the ECECD Secretary Grikinski about investing in these kinds of programs across the state. And so at some point we may ask for the advocacy of this governing body to support legislation on bringing in additional state funding for those kinds of programs. CYFD is incredibly interested in our youth, our community youth violence intervention program. And so I have a feeling that we'll find buku amounts of money to support that program once we get it up and running. And our RFP should be released in the next probably 2 weeks, maybe. But there's plenty of money from the state that would be able to offset those costs. And then the other programs, mostly the homelessness and cash assistance projects, we're continuing to look for different grants, both federal, state, and foundations. So we're working on those ones right now.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. And as you said, your department is small but mighty, and very happy to have you back. I'm glad you got to take some maternity leave for a little while, but man, did I miss you. So glad you're here again. I know I bombarded you the first week with here's like the 10 things I need to talk to you about, but thank you for working on this because I don't want to lose momentum on some of these really incredible programs. And please do let me know how I can be of assistance in advocating for these dollars.
Absolutely. Thank you.
And I think that is all for now, Madam Chair. I'll yield the floor.
Thank you. Other questions for the committee? Councilor Faulkner, then Councilor Lindell.
Teen Center.
How are we doing? I know that Councilor Garcia and I are concerned because there's a lot of teens in the district who don't have food, and so we're working with YouthWorks and a couple of other groups as well as your staff, obviously, to try to get a walk-in refrigerator and a bigger pantry so we can prepare meals, have the kids prepare meals, and then they have food for the week. Can I get a little status update on how that's coming along?
Yes, Madam Chair and Councilor Faulkner, we have met with our facilities division and we are working on getting design on the freezer and the storage space that we are trying to get implemented at the teen center. Working with YouthWorks also. YouthWorks is doing a great job for the summer program. They're providing free meals for the teens for the summer program and snacks, which is fantastic and a great bonus for the teens right now. When it comes to planning that process out for the freezer and the storage space, we are assigned a project manager and we're beginning those initial steps the past month.
Okay, I just want to emphasize how critical this is because they're, for the summer, I think they're going to be okay. But I'm not sure how long YouthWorks has the ability to carry that, to do that lift. And it's a big concern to me. I actually know some of the kids who aren't getting enough food. And so anything we can do to expedite, anything I can do to help to expedite, please let me know because it's a critical in my district, okay? Thank you.
Counselor Faulkner, yes, we understand the food security issue and what we're facing. And I think beyond the freezer and the dry storage space, we want to look for funding from the state, possibly other funding streams that we can provide these nutrition services at the teen center. So we do need to supplement our funding to make sure that we can continue to feed our users. So we will be working on that as well this next year.
One of our program specifics for the summer program for the teens is it's going to be housed out of the GCCC. YouthWorks is currently under contract operating the cafe at GCCC, which have those capacities. So I think for the summer for our program, where they're going to be able to help us serve meals and nutritious things for our teens throughout the summer. So
Just to follow up, so are the teens going to have to go to GCCC or is food going to be provided at the teen center in District 3?
there will be two ways. Food will be provided at the teen center. The summer program, separate from operating hours at the teen center, will run out of GCCC. So pickup and drop off will take place at GCCC. They'll have their activities and their days scheduled there, Monday, Wednesday, Fridays, and then they'll have Tuesdays and Thursdays where they're going to be offsite field trips and education activities like that. So both ways they'll be served from the teen center and at GCCC.
Excellent. Thank you, guys.
Counselor Lindell.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Our summer program, is it full?
Yes, Madam Chair and Councilor Lindell, our summer program, right now, we've gone through the pre-registration phase where everybody reserves their slot to come in and register on May 4th. Those slots have filled up within the first 20 minutes of that program going live. So we do anticipate every slot to be filled. The only thing that we're unsure of right now, as we're using our new platform for registration for the teen program, is those 50 slots. So we have 50 slots right now that have not been filled for the teen summer program, but all youth programs are full.
So where I'm going with this is the doorway that Andy opened up. And we've had this discussion for a number of years. It would seem like maybe city residents would have first priority at getting into those programs rather than county residents, and not then having spaces for children of city residents, because the city's paying for these programs. Have we had a conversation about that recently? Because we certainly have in the past.
Madam Chair and Councilor Lindell, we have not discussed that recently. However, I think it's something for us to determine as we're looking at all of our data, the needs of families in our community and how we could possibly, structure that so that it's equitable. And so that is something we can look into. And if there is a will for us to prioritize city residents, then we can certainly look at that for next year.
Well, I think Julie will be happy to hear this. I think we should collect some data on that. Because I don't think it's fair to people in the city that are paying taxes to operate these programs and their children can't get into the program. Whereas we have kids, and I want a program for them too. The bottom line is the county needs to put money into these programs so they can be expanded and every kid can be in them. But for the time being, city children should have first priority on them.
Madam Chair and Counselor Lindell, thank you for that. That is something we can look at. I know that we have the data available once we have sign up, so we can look at addresses and determine how many are city versus county or elsewhere. And then, you know, maybe that is a conversation with the county on maybe a county site that they run. So I think we can discuss that with our leadership and determine how we would move forward and kind of look at our numbers right now and who we are serving.
Well, once you have all the children signed up, I would like to have a look at
Yes, Madam Chair and Council Lindell, we are more than able to provide that data with the addresses and everything else. So once we get those compiled and get through our May 4th registration, we'll be happy to meet with you to discuss those. One thing I'd like to mention, recreation, specifically youth programs. In recreation, we are implementing our customer management system software. And that's going to allow us the ability to have that data readily available from pre-registration through programs and everything else. And that is something that we can look at. Yes, ma'am.
I appreciate that. We had this discussion some years ago when Mayor Gonzalez was here. And we spent a fair amount of time discussing it. And I think we need to have all the information so that we can, like I said, the ask is to the county. It's fair is fair. And we want every kid to have that opportunity. But if you're not going to pay your share, then unfortunately, those kids will go to the back of the line. And we don't like that. We want every kid to have an opportunity. So that's what I've got, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Other questions from the committee? Counselor Lee Garcia.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for all the information, the presentation. Just kind of overall question, I guess, total community services. And so when I look back at 21-22 actual expenditures, you're at 20.9 million. 22-23, you're at 25.8 million. Mid-year of 23-24 says 45.1, and now your proposed budget is 40.4. What's the major jump as to why we've gone so much more in this overall department?
Thank you, Madam Chair and Counselor Garcia. That's a good observation. Recreation in past years was a separate department, and last year we finalized the moving recreation under community services. And so that's where you'll see that increase is adding recreation into the community services budget.
We have Mr. Hopkins chiming in.
Do you help me out with this? I thought I thought I had the answer.
Madam Chair, Councilor Garcia, that's a common misperception. When we move recreation, for example, from its own department to community services, we move all the prior year actuals as well. So this community services budget includes its current structure going back in time, even back when recreation was technically not part of community services. The reason we do that is otherwise, you know, for one thing, recreation's budget actuals from past years would just disappear, poof, and you wouldn't see them anywhere. For another thing, it would not be a fair comparison. That like, well, we just doubled the community services budget. Well, no, that's just because we moved recreation in there. I believe it's really a matter of community services just doing more and being tasked to do more over that time. We have added positions, I believe, in library over that time, in seniors. Julie in youth and families is doing more than she has ever done before. You know, I always tell people that, you know, I don't think there's anybody in the city who has as large a responsibility for as many contracts and is just in such a small department. Frankly, I don't know how she does it, and just recently had a baby. So good on you, Julie. But yeah, it's
She has a cape.
yes, exactly. So I think it's more than anything else just that community service is doing more and more than it ever has before. And, you know, particularly coming out of COVID, they're, you know, really, they've taken on a much bigger role in the community than they have in the past, in the pre-COVID years too. So
Okay, thank you. And
I think
so
that's really what you're seeing.
recreation came out of which budget? It was moved from,
Madam Chair, Councilor Garcia, recreation used to be its own department. A separate department. If you look in the FY24 budget, you will see a recreation department composed of recreation admin, which is mostly general fund, and the GCC. In about mid-year, so on. It might have been, actually, we might have just made that change just in time for the 24 budget. So actually, I think you might have to go back to the 23 budget to see recreation as a separate department, but it was a separate department for a few years there. It's, yes, but if you go a few years back before then, there used to be a Parks and Recreation department. And then Parks got, that department was taken apart. Parks was moved to Public Works. Recreation was kind of moved to its own thing, but it was always under Kira Ochoa while she was here. And Maria has taken on that same role. So, you know, it's kind of effectively been a part of the community health and safety umbrella for all that time since it was part of the Parks and Recreation department.
Okay, just kind of piqued my interest there. Maybe for the mayor, is there a reason why we moved it from that department and streamlined it into this community services department?
Yeah, thank you, Counselor. Goes to the, I think, a big question or a very important question, which is why are these functions grouped together the way they are, and why did we imagine a number of years ago that a community health and safety department was a good idea? And I think the answer is you're hearing from the people who have made presentations and those who will shortly, that there's an awful lot of benefit that comes from having like policy focuses grouped for like management. And we get much more bang for the buck. The public gets much more collaboration, coordination by having groups of functions that can help each other under a management structure. And so we're talking about how do we get more for people? How do we keep them healthy and safe? The answer is by creating a department that brings together programs, people, expenditures that can leverage each other and get more out of it. So, for example, it's not a coincidence, nor is it a mistake that the teen center and the library on the south side are across from each other. Just by that proximity, you get a much greater return on the investment of people and facilities. The same applies to getting recreation, collaborating with the rest of the team that's there to have healthy opportunities for young people to stay well and I think that the teamwork that you're seeing and hearing is really a demonstration that the original philosophy of the grouping has paid real dividends.
Thank you. And I think that as the departments are together, they can work together. Sometimes you do move money from one to another for budget requests, and I think it would be
Absolutely. And also they collaborate on seeking grants and then effectively deploying that money. You know, I have thought for a long time that if we really wanted to do an organization chart that reflected our philosophy, what we would do would be to put, in my mind, it's always a stick figure of a family in the middle of a piece of paper. And around that family, draw a circle. And around the perimeter of that circle, put all the different ways in which we would like to serve that family, and put them in the middle of the org chart and our services around the perimeter so that we see how it looks from their point of view, which is we're trying to provide a host of opportunities for healthy, safe family living. And yet to the public, it isn't always clear how the pieces fit together or how to navigate that system. And I think you're hitting on a really important point, which is when the system is working, it's at the service of the individuals in the middle of the org chart, not the org chart with the people looking at it from the outside.
Thank you. I was kind of where my interest was going. I just wanted to make one other comment and offer the discussion over, city resources and maybe people who live in the county. I am also interested in looking at that data at some point to see where we're doing with that. I know that it's become harder and harder to live in the city of Santa Fe as well. And so I think being a good partner with those that do live in the county, us having that conversation with the county representatives, because people may have moved out of the city. Well, they may work in the city and they have children. And so definitely not really their fault because we don't have an affordability, so to speak, as far as housing. And so as long as we're having an open conversation with the county, I think that we can work towards, being inclusive. We don't want to discriminate against anyone either. So just some points, and thank you for that conversation. No more, I'll yield the floor, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Councilor Garcia. It was your line of questioning got to a question I wanted the mayor to speak to, which is the reason for this department. And it's, I think, unusual to have grouped all of the components together this way, and it seems to be paying dividends, beneficial to our end users. And I think it's an important, now that it's had a couple years to kind of get going, I think it's important to go back, especially as we bring new people onto the council and maybe people aren't familiar with the organizational structure of the city, that these are important opportunities to provide information about how the city works and why it's organized the way it is and what are some of the philosophies behind it. So I appreciate the questions that led to that conversation, which was something I was wanting to get to as well. Can I get an update on where we are on hiring the ice arena manager?
Yes, Madam Chair, we currently had our third posting for the position closed last Friday. We have a list of eligibles and we have one applicant that has made that list of eligibles, and we're planning on getting interviews scheduled for early next week and hopefully be able to make a recommendation. What we're struggling with on the position specifically is the language in terms of management experience. So we're receiving a robust pool of applicants, but the experience is very specific in its language of 5 years or 4 years ice arena specific management experience. So we're losing a large pool of applicants from that. So once again, we have one eligible that we plan to interview and possibly make a recommendation by next week.
Okay, and are you working with the pay scale at all in terms of being able to be competitive in the market with the experience that you're asking for?
Yes, we are looking at positions in the region, Albuquerque, Los Alamos, and everywhere else. The only real area that has an indoor ice arena would be Albuquerque, and those are privately owned, privately funded. So in terms of a municipal facility, Santa Fe is unique. Looking at the salary comparison to some of those facilities and those management of those facilities, we are on par with what they are. I think it's a little bit of a unique situation, like I said, with our ice arena.
And have you expanded the scope at all? I mean, do other states have municipal run ice arenas that are, I mean, I'm sure you're then looking at different economies, so that's probably not apples to apples, but just curious if it brings any information that's helpful.
The few arenas that we've looked at are in Denver, also Amarillo, El Paso, a few other places. Many of them are actually run not specifically as an ice arena, but as a conglomerate, so a larger recreation center. So it's one of the pieces of one of the recreation center managers. We have not found very many municipalities that actually have an ice arena specific manager as we do.
Okay, and I assume it's preferable to have an ice arena manager, not a conglomerate recreation manager.
Absolutely.
Because you get more individualized attention to the particular uses for that space.
I think what's important for an ice arena manager are the systems, the refrigerant systems, the HVAC systems, and maintaining the atmosphere for the ice arena. We, myself and our complex manager, are going to be going to the National American Rink Expo coming up in May, and we are going to try to collaborate and work with ice arenas throughout North America to see how each one of them work and to see what types of structure they have within their facility and how they work with contractors on maintaining systems. Our current manager or former manager was the guru. He was the expert on those systems. So trying to piece together those specific skills as well as understanding the needs of the ice community have been a challenge. We're kind of finding that we're receiving strong candidates in one or the other, but not combined in both of those skill needs.
Okay. Just an area I'm interested in. It's good to get the information about why that's been a difficult hire, and I'm glad to hear you're still working on it. And I love the fact that you're going to an expo. I bet there'll be some Zambonis there.
Yeah, myself and the complex manager will be certified Zamboni drivers so that we can assist.
Yeah, do they have a rodeo like we do with the recycling trucks? That'd be kind of cool.
I'd be excited to see. I am not sure.
Yeah, I don't know. Just wondering. All right. While I have you, Mayab, you I think mentioned that there was the summit. I know that we've had a change in kind of the mission of Mayab. It was very teen center focused to help get the teen center started and make sure the programming was appropriate for the users. But I'm fine with that. I hope that they don't continue to only do that. Not that that's not important, but I am happy to hear that they had a summit and that they're looking at youth issues across the city. And just, I don't know, so they're going to report out on what the important issues are for youth across the city, which is more broad, which I love. Then what?
Some of the fruits of the summit so far have been the data that the Mayab group was passionate about. They collected data on a project that they saw was important to them, which was then now turned into subcommittees that have formed over the last 2 months of Mayab meetings. We have one that's putting together a youth employment and career readiness event and also focusing on working with community partners and businesses to put youth employment training and opportunity in one area for youth to find. So that's probably been our most successful one to date. We also have a teen subcommittee that's working as the Teen Center Steering Committee, so continuing that mission of MIAB. And then we have a few others that are just getting going, substance abuse and recovery, and health and access to healthcare. So access for youth and how they get connected to resources. And then there's discussion of another subcommittee coming up on mental health and bullying and school issues. So we are getting those beginning steps going from the summit data, turning into subcommittees as such.
Great. And, you know, I think their role in the teen center is important and probably a good way to access youth, or a gateway to collaborating, but I want them to be able to follow their own interests and the needs that they identify with their demographic more broadly. I'd just put a plug, I say this all the time, I would love to get us back to some funding to do performance-based budgeting for them, let them have control of a particular dollar amount and give them that experience to place dollars where they see a need and just, I don't know, feel what that's like and the responsibility of it as well. So just gonna continue to advocate for that. I have talked to other counselors about it. So hope that's something we can get back to. I know we cut it during the pandemic, which I understand, but now that we're kind of emerging out, would love to see us get back. So we have talked about the senior center study. You mentioned it. Can you just, I think this is one of those opportunities to tell a broader audience that we're looking at this. I think we did have somebody come to Petitions from the Floor who suggested we didn't have a senior center on the south side. But I don't know if they were aware that we are doing a feasibility study about where we need a senior center and beginning that work to get a new one. And so maybe you could just tell us a little bit more about that.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Senior Services is working with the Facilities Department. We just finalized a contract with an architectural firm that will lead this planning study. And so we just kicked off at our first meeting. And so now we will start promoting public meetings and engagement and surveys and ways that folks can provide input. We're also looking at the demographics and data to give us an idea about what makes the most sense, and not just right now who we're serving, but looking at data into the future and projections about what seniors are going to need into the future. So that will be all a part of this planning study that we're focusing on. They will provide information, and then we as you as policymakers and the community will come together and determine the feasible location, how it's going to best serve the seniors into the future. And so there'll be a lot of opportunity for community input into this process. So we're just kicking that off now.
Great. All right. I'm sure we could talk for a long time about Mayor.
Thank you. Can I just
Sure.
jump in for one more second? I appreciated the opportunity to say a little bit about the philosophy of the organization. I thought I would take the opportunity to ask Julie, yes, another Sanchez, to please come up. I have a question for her.
None of us are related.
Yeah, but it's a great new moniker. I think we're gonna have to go with it. All kidding aside, it seems to me that one of the great examples of why this organization structure makes sense, but also one of the topics that I think it's important to talk about and to use the budget hearings as an education and discussion forum is the subject of homelessness in Santa Fe. I know it's probably one of the most commonly talked about, perhaps most commonly misunderstood about how you and your team approach this national crisis. I think it's safe to say that you've been working on it with all the people who are in this department and outside of it as well, with partners in the county, the state, the region, the Coalition to End Homelessness and more, the S3 Coalition. But I think if we're using the budget hearings as an opportunity to do an overview of something that is on the minds of many people in Santa Fe, and I know I didn't prep you for this question, so I apologize in advance, but I think it'd be useful for you to give an overview of the strategic approach that you and your teammates are guiding us through that involve a whole gamut of specifics, but all under an umbrella of a strategy that actually makes sense and that demonstrates that we are doing projects with others and on our own. And at the same time, the projects are in the service of a more clear, coherent, and constructive strategy that yields real results, has yielded results in many cities, and is showing results here, whether we see it every moment or not. The results are trending in the right direction, and the trajectory is demonstrating that this strategy makes sense. So, long-winded essay question designed to give you a chance to pull together some specifics that demonstrate to the public and to the governing body the overarching strategy that is being advanced to address the folks in our community who are struggling with being unhoused.
So, Mr. Mayor, Madam Chair, we've been working on the issue of homelessness, I think, probably since I started at the city almost 8 years ago. It was a priority of then Mayor Gonzalez and then continues to be a priority through this administration. And I think this strategy, I will say Roseanne Haggerty is an absolute hero of mine, and I actually did, in full transparency, my undergraduate research paper on her work on addressing issues of homelessness in Times Square. And so she is my personal rock star. She's also a social worker by trade. So still like, we're like homies.
Folks who aren't familiar with Roseanne, she's the MacArthur Prize winner from Community Solutions, an overarching national organization, one part of which is the Built for Zero strategy that we've signed up for. And Roseanne is also my hero. And we're very lucky to have her as a partner in this effort to address homelessness, and to be not just a partner in name, but a physical presence who comes to Santa Fe and helps us by being here and giving us more than her wisdom, also financial support from Community Solution.
So our strategy is multi-pronged, right? It's not just about working with affordable housing to develop housing units. It's not just about responding to encampments through the creation of a park ranger program. It's not just about safety through Code Blue with the Office of Emergency Management. It's bridging and building these pathways from getting somebody, and then also, of course, preventing homelessness through direct cash assistance through eviction prevention funding. So there's all of these different streams, and Roseanne's overarching goal with Built for Zero is to create a system around the individual's needs to get them into housing, whatever housing solution fits for that individual as quickly as possible, using both rapid rehousing as well as the Housing First model. And so that's the system that we're building. We're creating a by name list. We've actually gotten so much farther in that work over the last year than we have in the last almost 8 years dedicated to this work. We do have an approximate count, because we're still working on it, of 370 individuals who are experiencing unsheltered homelessness. We have various groups out in the community, including a really robust and outstanding outreach group made up of not only city folks, so the ARU, the park rangers, but also our folks out in the community. So our LifeLink Interfaith is now starting to do outreach with the mobile hygiene unit. All of these groups coming together to talk about individuals and how best to get them into the housing solution that fits their needs. Yeah, and it's been quite the process. I had mentioned the mobile hygiene unit, like there's all of these various programs and projects that we've started to not only figure out who is homeless using data, Counselor Lindell, but also figuring out how we can meet the needs of those individuals to get them into housing. And my biggest project, which will come across, or which will of course be presented to the governing body, will be the Consuelos 2.0 and what that looks like. And that's going to be a really, I don't want to say too much because we have an RFP out, but it's going to be, we're trying to think of really inventive and strategic ways to best serve that population. And that also includes figuring out pathways for getting folks in encampments and who are currently unsheltered into and streamlining their entry into the SOS or into Consuelos 2.0. So I hope that in the next year we'll see some real both visual results, but also I'm hoping that we capture some of the data via our CRMs and see a decrease in a lot of that, you know, in a lot of the complaints that we receive as a city.
Thank you. I really want to give this team an enormous amount of credit. This is the hardest problem in American cities today. There's not a city in the United States that isn't wrestling with the intersection of homelessness, coupled sometimes with opioid addiction or fentanyl use. And fentanyl is a game changer for the impact on individuals and their families and those who they interact with while they are under the influence of fentanyl. And then, of course, mental and behavioral health as a piece of that. And our team is doing an incredible job. That doesn't mean that every single day you will not encounter homeless people in Santa Fe. It means that we have a strategy in place that is yielding results. It's collaborative. We're partnering with the Coalition to End Homelessness. We're partnering with the nonprofits. The internal partnership that is built into this structure that Councilor Garcia asked about adds a multiplier effect to the ability to respond appropriately to calls for help. The ARU, the park rangers mean we have a more nuanced way to take care of people who are having the worst day of their lives than just always sending a police officer out to contend with that issue. Prevention is obviously where it all starts. And that's working with the affordable housing team. So this is really a very, very significant effort. We do have a regular meeting of the homelessness Tiger team so that the internal coordination is even more fully enhanced. And Julie and everybody who participates do a huge thank you. The reason we're able to have safe outdoor sleeping pallet spaces now is the work they've done with finance, with procurement. I mean, it really takes an enormous amount of internal coordination to get to the point where you can deploy 10 pallet homes for people to live in. And we're going to keep working on it. We will continue to address it with both specific projects. Hopefully the lamplighter will get off the ground and add even more both voucher and homeless shelter for people. There is no stopping on this journey. And I am so grateful to them for all their hard work. It's really the toughest combination of issues in urban America right now. And we have an amazing team that does incredible work. And it is not something where you get to declare victory and stop. You keep working on it every single day. So thank you for just walking through some of the efforts that amount to the city's strategic response to that bundle of issues that often just gets called homelessness. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Yeah, and I'd just add the national partnerships also. You were speaking mostly about the community partners and the partnerships within city government, but certainly touching on Built for Zero, and then of course, the folks that helped us with the buying of the pallet homes and the company that sells them. And so anyway, it's a big effort. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I will say, we do hope to open 2 more sites before the end of the year. So keeping my fingers crossed.
Great. All right, we really do need to move along. But I know we could probably spend several days here touching on all the great work that goes on in this department. So if there are no more questions from the committee, is there a motion?
Move to approve?
We have a motion and a second to approve this budget. I think we need a roll call.
Certainly, Madam Chair. Counselor Cassett.
Yes.
Counselor Faulkner. Counselor Lee Garcia.
Yes.
Counselor Lindell. Chair Romero Worth.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. So just a little roadmap of where we're going. We do need to do emergency management, and then we're going to do whatever the order is, fire and police, or police and fire. I'm not sure which. I'll have to look at the agenda, but we're going to go to emergency management now.
Madam Chair, may I just confirm the motion and the second on
Sure.
the last vote? It was Counselor Cassett with the motion and Counselor Lindell with the second. Thank you.
Okay, so, and I just found my agenda. So we're going to do emergency management, then we're going to go to the police department, and then the fire department. So take it away, emergency management.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the committee. Always good to see you. As most of you know, emergency management is, if not the smallest, one of the smallest organizations within the city. And I'm just thrilled to be able to come to you and underscore the accomplishments of this very small but powerful organization for this year. Our mission is daunting. The mission is basically to have all of the city's bad dreams and to come up with creative, resilient solutions to mitigate and prepare for those potential inevitabilities. With that, we do a tremendous amount of planning, exercising. We are I'm not sure what the right word is. We are grant consumers. We are constantly applying for grants to support our organization, police, fire. IT is eligible for some of this stuff. What I'd like to point out is this last year, we completed 3 full-scale exercises: the airport triennial exercise, the biannual waste isolation pilot project transportation exercise, and an exercise with the U.S. Army NORTHCOM Civil Support Team, which was part of their annual certification. In addition, we did a couple of tabletop exercises. And then I also had recently a public open house on wildfire evacuation awareness. You may have seen that made the paper. It was a small but very dedicated group of citizens who attended. And then we did a subsequent presentation at the Audubon Center a couple of weeks ago, where we discussed in depth this particular issue. Folks are very excited that we were able to complete our evacuation analysis, and the final product will be on the website within a couple of weeks. We're putting the final touches on it, but that will be what's called Know Your Zone. So we'll be able to go to a link on the website, type in your address, and see what evacuation zone you are in. And then, of course, if there is an actual activation, the zone will both light up in color, but also give you a narrative regarding the status of that zone, whether it's ready, set, or go, and to tell you what it is that means, both in English and in Spanish, which is very exciting. We just are putting the finishing touches on the update of the emergency operations plan framework. This is the first time this has been done since 2012. So we're excited to get that completed. We continue to coordinate and track the active shooter awareness training for all of the city employees. I've reinstated the City Emergency Management Coordinating Group. We've completed a City Councilor's Guide to Emergency Management. We managed 4 Code Blue incidents over this last year and supported the distribution of literally hundreds of cold weather supply kits. And we have spent roughly 80% of our vulnerable population allotment of $150,000. And then we have another 150 for PPE. We haven't spent as much of that because it's just not a big demand. We did spend recently funding for the installation of sanitizer stations that our city staff could refill to replace the corporate ones, the Cintas stations that we had a contract to be refilled. The idea being, of course, is that it's more cost effective for us to be able to refill our own stations. We pulled together millions of dollars worth of grant funding and federal reimbursements for disaster, including helping the fire department navigate their reimbursement for their trip up to Las Vegas, which ended up being over $1 million reimbursement. And we're excited for next year. We'd like to continue developing our emergency operations plans. There's a couple. The city hazard mitigation plan, we are applying for a grant to update that, which is on a 5-year annual or a 5-year cycle. We are required now to put together a distribution management plan, which would be us outlining how we would distribute supplies and needed, whether it was vaccine or medicines or water and ice, depending on whatever kind of incident it was, basically how we would distribute materials to the public. Excuse me. We're very excited, and Kyle Morgan, my associate, my emergency management specialist, is devoted a lot of time and effort. We've got grant funding to do some GIS-based information dashboards. So we're excited to see that coming online. We continue to promote the Alert Wildfire Camera Lookout System, including we have asked for some funding through the Radas of the Finance Department to purchase an infrared camera that would look up into the watershed and detect heat. The idea behind this is that it's not just a visualization of potential smoke, but rather a detection of heat, which would then be able to alert us that the detection has occurred so that we would get early. I'm a big believer in early detection of fire. And we're hoping this will serve as a model for to try to inspire other organizations to help support the Alert Wildfire concept, which is basically virtual fire towers with cameras, with home cameras, with cell phone cameras, basically trying to create a better, more effective visualization of the watershed and of the urban interface. Our budget basically is pretty much flat. We haven't asked for anything big. I will say, when you look at our numbers, it's a little confusing. There's somewhat, they somewhat roller coaster. That has to do with grant funding that comes in. And so it looks like we've got tons of money one year and nothing the next, and it roller coasters, but this is basically driven by grant funding. So with that, I'll stand for any questions.
Great, thank you. Questions from the committee? Counselor Cassett?
Thank you so much, Madam Chair, and thank you so much for being here, Director Williams. Quick questions. One, the Know Your Zone. This sounds like a very important project information. I'm curious about the communication strategy for getting, because obviously we don't want people to just be looking up their zones when we're in an emergency. And people may not pay attention until there is an emergency. So what is that communication strategy going to look like? How are we going to be utilizing, other city departments, community partners, so that we can really raise awareness of this ahead of a potential emergency, so people can be aware? I have concerns about that, knowing that general people will say, oh, we didn't receive any information from the city because they haven't followed our, different social medias or emails or things like that.
Well, I plan to go out and knock on every door in the wildland interface and preach to them the importance of wildfire preparation. Your point's well taken. We try so hard to get the word out, and this is true across the public safety spectrum, whether it's the police department telling people not to leave your car running and warming up in the winter because it might get stolen, or the fire department telling people don't put their coals in the garbage can. There's a litany of messages that we in the public safety community push out. My hope is to continue developing the rapport with the community homeowners associations. They seem to be the most devoted group that I've encountered so far. If we had more time and more folks to cover the bases, it would be great to start getting out to the schools and start planting the seeds of public safety awareness in, the young people, so that they're thinking about these kinds of things. I don't know how many middle schoolers really know what emergency management is, and what we do and how we do it and what implications it has for their lives and what they can do to help their parents prepare. So, we have a great communications team. It was sad to see Michaela leave. I was really heartbroken, but nevertheless, the remaining folks are really devoted. And so we hope to take advantage of that body of skill set for the city. So that's kind of where I'm at.
Okay. Yeah, it sounds like a lot of opportunities for partnership. I know that I took a class, in public health communications, and there was a lot of conversation around emergency management. And I was in California, so a lot of talking about earthquake preparedness. And I know that was a challenge that was brought up then of how hard it can be. You can have these great plans, and they really work when we get them out to the public. And so please do let me know if there's any way that I can help in forming some of these partnerships. And I know one thing that I would really like is to have you all come to Quality of Life to give an update on some of this work and some of these reports as they're coming through, and what the work is being done. I know we haven't done that yet for Quality of Life. And this was a good reminder to me that this is a new department that we really should be, or not new department to the city, but new department with Quality of Life that we should be diving into to help spread this information. So I'll be in touch with you about that. Other question was, you mentioned something about PPE, and were there dollars for PPE, or do we have already purchased PPE? And if there's dollars, can we reallocate them? Because it's not.
That's my hope.
Okay.
There were two $150,000 ARPA allotments, one for vulnerable population and the other for PPE. We had a robust amount of PPE stockpiled already, and so we haven't seen the demand for purchasing PPE. So right now there's quite a bit of that funding available. And I've talked to Emily about this very thing, is to perhaps reassign this to vulnerable population.
Okay. Yeah, wonderful. I know that when we were going through ARPA allocation, we were still in a world where I believe we were still masking quite a bit. And obviously things have since shifted. So I would be very much in favor of where we can utilize those dollars for something that is a bit more salient right now. And of course, vulnerable populations is still one that we, as we just discussed, there's still a lot of work and need there. So thank you.
Yeah, and unfortunately, the PPE has a shelf life. And
Yep.
so it's not quite the same as stockpiling woolly hats, which don't expire. you know, the PPE does have a shelf life.
Right, yeah. And what PPE do we have, you know, stockpiled and is it expiring at this juncture?
Boy, it's all over at the safety office and we've got basically a little bit of everything.
Okay.
Masks, gloves. I think they're starting to draw down their supply of sanitizer, but we have a giant tank of sanitizer over at the airport,
Okay.
like over 1,000 gallons, I think.
Very clean hands at the airport, great.
You know, with face shields, we got an abundance of face shields. They didn't sell.
Yeah.
And there was a whole bunch of different models that arrived coming primarily from the state.
Right.
And there just wasn't an appetite for them. So we got
Right.
a bunch of those.
Well, and again, I think that, you know, the pandemic shifted, you know, we all remember that they got a vaccine to market in record time. So, you know, things really did continue to change. So makes sense that as the world changed faster than we thought it would, that, you know, that we did allocate money that we can now utilize for different issues at this time. So thank you for looking into that. Really do appreciate you being on top of those dollars and how they can best be leveraged at the city. And I have no further questions at this time.
Okay. Counselor Lindell, you looked at me and I wasn't sure if you were saying, yes, I have questions or
really have
no.
a
Then I'm going to go to
question.
Counselor Faulkner and then I'm going down to Counselor Garcia.
Thank you. I think the job you did, it's been some time frame, but you did a terrific job for us through the pandemic, and communications that you send out early in the morning are very, very much appreciated. Thank you.
Counselor Faulkner.
Just have a couple questions, and I may have missed something when I stepped out, so forgive me if I'm redundant. Capacity. If we had a major crisis, what's our capacity to manage it? Like if we know that we don't have enough firefighters and we don't have enough police officers and not enough paramedics.
Fortunately, we have both an internal state mutual aid system, the IMAS system, but also a national level mutual aid system called EMAC. And so, of course, the challenge is if it was an incident like COVID where everybody was impacted. So it wasn't it was atypical in the sense that in a normal disaster, you know, the hurricane hits Louisiana and you get resources coming in from Georgia. In the case of COVID, that wasn't, we didn't have as much of that available. But for the kinds of incidents that we would encounter here, which would be major fires, flooding, perhaps a severe winter weather event, we have the ability to draw on mutual aid within the state, but also out of state.
And how long do you have any idea how long it takes? I know in-state probably pretty fast, but from out of state, it takes hours, if not days to get.
It depends on what you're asking for. You know, some resources are more, you know, firefighting resources. They're a little more adept at being prepared to leave on short notice compared to, say, some other types of resources. It just really depends on what you're looking for. But it's an amazing, for example, with wildland fire, it's amazing how they can go from 0 to 1,000 firefighters within literally days.
And heaven forbid, truly, what about a terrorist attack? Like some kind of poison that's put out there, airborne attack of some kind, not planes, but I mean like dropping poison or a small radioactive device.
Well, and I mentioned in the exercises that we did involved what's called the Civil Support Team. CSTs are an artifact of 9/11 where the military recognized that they have a capacity to do what local fire departments can't do. And that is to detect some of these high and toxins, the biological, radiological. Now, our fire department has the capacity to detect radiological threat, but not necessarily for what we call white powder incidents like ricin and anthrax, et cetera. So the CSTs were created in every state, and in some states more than one, to support civil law enforcement and fire to respond to those kinds of incidents. So if we have a quote white powder incident or something that was terrorist related in that, with that sort of unknown substance, we have that resource available to us. Additionally, we have through the Los Alamos Laboratory, they have a aircraft. It's called the Aspect aircraft. What Aspect can do is it can fly over an incident, whether it's a train wreck or a factory fire, and not only measure the dispersion of the smoke and the contaminants, but also it takes chemical analysis of that cloud such that then you basically understand not only where is this cloud going, but how dangerous is it? And the Aspect aircraft, I believe it's based in Texas. So it's, flight time to wherever incident, whether it's a, and the problem with things like train wrecks is that it's often not one chemical. It's a couple of different tank cars that have now ruptured and are mixing together. So now you have a much more complex and a certain level of uncertainty in terms of what is the dangerousness of that particular incident. So Aspect is a tool that was, again, it's a 9/11 artifact that was developed with, I think the EPA started it. Now I believe it's under the National Guard, but it is a tremendous resource to be able to fly over an incident and do the type of detection that you're talking about, the chemical or radiological detection, and give us a sense of what's going on. So it's a tremendous resource.
My question was more to, thank you, though, that's good information. But my question was more to like, say say like the downtown area gets hit with something into mustard gas or something. How do we have the instantly respond and get medical care? I know the county has a bunch of emergency response vehicles, including the hazard material. I think our own fire department also has hazardous material kind of.
It does.
Thing. So like, what's the capacity there?
Depends on the scale of the incident. I'm not going to lie to you. If we had a large scale release of something like mustard gas in downtown Santa Fe, and you're talking about hundreds of potential victims, serious potential victims, that's going to max our capability. We would obviously at that point be drawing resources from other communities, but our city resources, it's just a matter of, you have to be reasonable. The city fire department has to plan for most likely incidents, not necessarily the worst case. We just simply can't afford to have a hazardous material capacity for 500 victims.
No, that makes sense. I completely agree. I'm just like probing a little bit. So thank you for that. The other question I have is, and again, I may have missed this. Do you use, so cities like New York will send out text messages to their entire population that's what's happening and then it updates them every 30 minutes or as needed about things that are happening around the city? Like if there was, I know I was in New York and there was there was a protest and it started to feel a little like a riot was about to break out, and immediately the entire city got notices on their phones that this area is likely to be contained and to stay away from that area. And if you were in that area, to stay in a safe space. When New York was flooding, the same thing happened. They got immediate, the second the city knew about how dangerous it was, every citizen got a text message, and the text messages sometimes include links to what to do. Sometimes they just give you direction about what to do, but get them at every step of the incident. When the flooding started, they were alerted and where they should go and how they should behave. Then in the middle of the process, they were told where they should go and how they should behave. And at the end, they were told that everything's going to be okay. This is what's happening tomorrow. Do we have something like that?
We do. We share it with the county. We have, it's called Alert Santa Fe. Now, keep in mind, the Alert Santa Fe side of the system is where you're opting in and choosing to be a responder to a particular set of information. So for example, people sign up for transportation information. I apologize, I thought I turned it off. With that pool, we can also do basically what's called an IPAWS, which is the Integrated Public Alert and Warning System. It's basically an Amber Alert type of system where we can send out a message to every cell phone in Santa Fe County. And so that's the messaging that you were getting when you were in New York, was IPAWS messages, which is in effect the emergency alert system. So we have the capacity to put out messages both to people who choose to get that information. For example, people sign up for Alert Santa Fe for traffic disruption, and then various members of the police department staff have the ability to send out a message that tells people, hey, there's a crash on Cerrillos Road, take an alternative direction. So yes, we have that capability.
Yeah, I just have never had it on my phone, which is a good thing, I suppose. I just was curious. Thank you. Thank you for everything you do as well.
Thank you. Do we have a motion on this budget? Sorry, Counselor Lee Garcia, sorry.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just, a lot of what I had in questions was covered by my co-counselors here. I did have a question in regards to your capital purchases, and so our capital purchases, can you relate in regards to 21-22, what was purchased for capital reasons? Yeah, 381,000.
Off the top of my head, I'd have to look it up to give you a succinct answer, but that was probably equipment that was purchased for the police department. And I would have to again track it back, but we've purchased bomb robot, X-ray machine. So there's equipment that's been purchased on behalf of the police department through the SHISHGAP grant that would have fallen into that category.
Okay, and then you have a proposed capital purchase of 109,360.
That again is SHISHGAP funding the State Homeland Security Grant Program. So this year, we funded a number of items were for the police. We actually got things for everybody. Stuff for the police department, a hazardous materials, high-end hazardous materials sensor for the fire department, and then funding for us to do GIS work. So.
Okay, so possibly with the infrared cameras and things of that nature.
Pardon me?
Infrared, you mentioned infrared cameras for our.
That is not yet, it's a concept. We'd like to try to get funding through the, as you may know, there is some excess reserve funding the city is seeking to spend down. And the departments were asked to submit their wish list. And my wish list was the infrared camera for the watershed, funding for additional planning, and a plotter.
Thank you. So again, your proposed budget for 24-25 is 109. And again, I understand that there would be purchases, the department's not huge. And so, I see you gotta have to do a lot with minimal resources. And so, just kind of curious as to where that, what you're proposing to purchase in capital expenditures. I'll move from there. Maybe we can talk offline
Yeah, I was gonna
Yeah,
say
for-
typically these are monies that are passing through our organization to primarily the police department or the fire department.
Thank you. And, I did catch a couple, what are our top priorities in regards to what we're focusing on. I know fire is a huge, very, very large area of our focus. And, we are very close to Los Alamos. I do know that there is equipment with the county, and so having a collaborative agreement between the agencies, and I'm glad to hear that, that we do have those and how well we would be able to work together with each other. I know the county has a piece of equipment called C-Bernie, which is, I think it stands for chemical, biological, so I don't know what the full acronym means, but it's something that hopefully will never have to be used, because if it is, then we have a major problem here in our city. So, thank you for the line of questioning. I'll yield the floor, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Counselor. Is there a motion on this budget?
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion and a second to approve this budget. Can we get a roll call, please?
Certainly, Madam Chair. Counselor Cassett,
Yes.
Counselor Faulkner,
Yes.
Counselor Lee Garcia,
Yes.
Counselor Lindell, Chair Romero Worth.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thanks for being with us, Brian. Okay, the police department. Come on down. You're the next contestant on The Price is Right. I think I'm dating myself. I'm also getting slap happy.
We were debating on playing that theme music for ourselves as we came down, Madam Chair.
Welcome, and Chief, happy to have you and your team. Certainly introduce people as appropriate and necessary, and jump right in.
Thank you. I'll begin with an etiquette question. Is it okay if I bring my coffee with me? I didn't know if that was okay or not.
Only if you give me some too. I'm just kidding.
Yeah, I've got a mug and the both of you. You're
Didn't-
it looks like a Stanley, and it totally looks like police department approved. So
I didn't want to be rude, but it takes a lot of caffeine to get me this energized and animated. So, what I can here. I was debating with myself about how much information to include here, whether or not to just keep it real short and sweet and wait for your questions, or just throw a lot of information at you, and hopefully I answer your questions along the way. So I'm going to try to do somewhere in between. But at the discretion of the committee and Madam Chair, if I'm going too far into the weeds in something, or if I'm going to in an area that you guys feel already know where we're going, feel free to stop me and redirect me, and I'll move on. I also want to be clear to not take credit for the quality of the PowerPoint. That's the budget team. The PowerPoint I sent them was not nearly as professional and nice looking. So yeah, no one's going to be hiring me to do their PowerPoints anytime soon. So with that, I will just jump into it. And with me here I have is Deputy Chief Ben Valdez and Deputy Chief Matt Champlin. DC Valdez is over the administration division, and DC Champlin is over the operations division for the police department. The mission of the police department is to provide the city of Santa Fe residents and guests with a safe environment in which to live, work, and visit. Through professional service and quality policing, the department endeavors to foster open communication, mutual respect, absolute trust, integrity, and justice within our community by working together to prevent, reduce, and combat crime and illegal activity. The FY25 proposed budget decreased from last year by 2.8 million, or 6.6%. This was due largely because of the removal of carry forwards from last fiscal year, largely related to the vehicle carry forwards and the upfit and equipment for those vehicles. That was, we were struggling with the chip shortage, and the chain supply issues affected us. So, but moving on to staffing, So we have 169 sworn positions for the department. We currently have 25 vacancies. It's a 15% vacancy rate. However, we do have 5 cadets that we plan to hire at the end of May, and we have 1 lateral that's in the background process now. We're actually planning to interview her tomorrow. For non-sworn positions, there's 68 positions allocated. We have 17 vacancies, which is 25%. However, we do have 11 civilians in background, so that would bring that, and assuming they're all good to go, that would, again, plan to hire by the end of next month. So as you can see on the screen there, we had 83,391 calls for service. It is the highest call for service year that we've had up to this, as far as this decade. I feel pretty confident that I can say, even going through the old days of the 20 teens, that we're still higher than them too, but I didn't want to go back too far. This here is a 9% increase from last year. And I wanted to kind of go into detail about what it means operationally when we talk about the calls for service and the work that's being done with the budget that we do every year. And so all of our data is calendar year. So when I talk about numbers, it's 2023 numbers, even though we're in 2024. But I will say also that 2024 so far compared to 2023 months in, we are higher in our calls for service, but we are lower in incidents of major crimes. So, and I'll give a little bit of a breakdown for 2023. The top calls for us include close patrols at 13%. That was 10,574. Disorderly conducts at 12%. That was 10,042. Traffic stops were 10%, 8,307. And welfare checks were 7% of our total call volume, 6,241. So altogether, that made up 42% of our calls for 2023. And so going through, next slide, sorry, to accomplishments for the operations division. And again, if we need more, if you would like more information on these, we have the information, and DC Champlin can speak to it. But an unmanned aerial system was put in place and operational this year. Before we did that, we did put a policy in place with not just local preferred practices or state, but national best practices. We did several other major policy updates to SWAT, ERT, our drone policy, body worn camera, arrest procedures for both felony and misdemeanor, our lineup policy, traffic, and search and seizure updates. Close to 90% of our eligible personnel have completed our in-house sergeant certification course. And so to elaborate on that a little bit, there's plenty of leadership courses and private entities offering sergeant certification courses, but we didn't have until recently, 2022 was when we did the first class of in-house, what we expect of our own leadership and our own supervisors and sergeants, how to handle these administrative complaints, how to work with officers for performance improvements, how to handle and guide through various calls for service that they're going to encounter. And so far, 90% have gone through that, eligible. And that's not just sergeants, that's senior officers and detectives as well, because they'll often serve in a supervisory role. Also, the focused proactive operations that we have here, these aren't all of them. These were the major ones, the larger ones. And just real quick, referencing, just to kind of give the highlights of some of these, the Operation Gone in 60 Seconds, that was from February until March of 2023. We saw a reduction of stolen motor vehicles by 40%, resulted in 458 close patrols. They recovered 3 stolen motor vehicles, and they made 4 arrests. And kind of referencing what emergency manager referenced earlier, there were 344 notifications of leaving their vehicles warming up in the morning. So of work done there. For Operation Fall Blitz, that ran from October 1st through November 3rd. That resulted in 472 citations. 85 were for speeding, 23 were for school zone violations, 15 were for red lights, and 27 were for muffler violations. Operation Cleanup, again, just going through the results here, that ran from October 13th until November 3rd. That resulted in 21 camps being cleaned up, 16 arrests, 39 individual contacts, and the seizure of a number of narcotics to include methamphetamines, fentanyl, and cocaine. Operation All Hands, this was probably the most large-scale operation for us. That included all of the sections under the operations division. That resulted in 20, and that was targeted specifically towards gun violence and youth gun violence. That resulted in 21 arrests, 37 search warrants, 16 guns, all of which were stolen. Those were all seized, entered into evidence. Also the collection and evidence of narcotics, fentanyl, cocaine, and methamphetamines. So next slide. So goals for this year for the operations division is continuing these large-scale operations. These proactive operations, we have 3 that are active as we speak for patrol and support operations. And then more training for newly promoted lieutenants. There's been a request as and go into more information, but specific to administrative investigations, how to conduct them, what are the rules and restrictions and employee rights about going through those. And then enhancing patrol section staffing and career advancement. And again, that also kind of ties back to the supervisor leadership course, the in-house leadership course. Next slide, please. So the administration division is DC Valdez's house here. They were able to receive approval from the governing body to begin the transition from our records management system that we currently have, One Solution, over to Axon Records. And we can go on and on about why this current system that we're transitioning over to is better than where we were at, but move forward. Another one was catching up on the replacement of police vehicles. Again, the supply chain issues and the chip shortage really put a damper on us, but we're pretty much where we should be as far as fleet. The expansion of the crime scene unit, and it was also moved from operations to administration to have them work more collaboratively and fluidly with the evidence section, the evidence technicians, that they were already under the administration section division. And they have filled the majority of the vacant administrative positions under the administrative section. Next slide, please. Yeah, I can't do any of that. Other cool things, Anyway, our primary goal for the administrations division is to retain the talented staff that we do have, continue to recruit more talented staff, and account for the natural attrition. And this goes to sworn and civilian support staff. Continue the transition to Axon Records, and it's not just an RMS, but it also, we use it for, where we can use it, we're hoping to use it for administrative investigations and our administrative reports. So it's all going to be one large comprehensive system that we can use. And then to continue to work to ensure that the fleet is, vehicles are continued and up to date, and have the most up-to-date technology, police radios, computer-based programs, and safety equipment. And next slide. Before we go into questions, I know often it is an interest of at least previous membership to know about the gender breakdown we've been asked in the past. So just for your FYI, let me move it over here. Okay, so for sworn positions, for female officers, we're at 15%. That's a little bit above generally the national average. You're right about 14%. But when we go into the breakdown further, so we have two female sergeants, roughly 70% of our patrol sergeants. We have one female investigations sergeant. All but one of our crime scene technicians. No, I'm sorry. All of our crime scene technicians are female. All but one of our evidence technicians are female. One evidence technician supervisor of our two, one's female, one's male. Our support operations lieutenant is female. And of our PSAs, 3 of our 11 are female, 27%. And for animal services, 3 of 8 are female. With that, I will answer questions.
Thank you. Questions from the committee? Counselor Cassett.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair. Thank you, Chief, and both DCs for being here. I did want to get some more information on the UAS program. You mentioned some policies and best practices that were put into play. What is this? More information just in general on how this is utilized, and then how data is protected and how personal data is protected with this program.
To DC Champlin, he led that program and getting it up off the ground, literally and figuratively.
Madam Chair, Councilor Cassett, let me get this situated here. So the UAS was a big project. We started back in April of 2023. Took us all the way until October. We created a committee with sections from all different members and stakeholders of the department to determine exactly what we wanted to do with it. And then we researched very thoroughly for national and local best practices and standards for policies. The primary uses for it, and I have some notes here just so I don't miss anything, but situational awareness, search and rescue, tactical deployments. Those tactical deployments are more so for, and I could talk a second about some new drones that we just got. They're smaller, they can go inside businesses and residences, and that's more along the lines of searching inside, so more of a tactical deployment. Visual perspective for large events like Zozobra, that's a big one. We'll actually be there this year. We're pretty excited about this. Will be our first year, where last year we went as looky-loos, so to speak. I stuck a drone guy with him. We were just developing the program, and we stuck him with him and said, okay, let's see what they do. And this year we'll actually be in charge of our own visual from the sky, so to speak. And then lawful surveillance. There's a misconception with what drones can do. And for law enforcement, we have to have a search warrant if we're going to be obtaining anything of evidentiary value. So if we were investigating a case and we needed to use whatever that was for further search warrants, arrest warrants, things of that nature, we have to actually apply for a search warrant. We're actually one of the first, if not the first, in our district for the first judicial attorney's office to develop a drone search warrant that goes through the legal standard and met legal efficiency and got approved. So that was pretty neat. In addition to that, all the pilots have to be certified through the Federal Aviation Administration, which they are. We currently have 6 remote piloting commands. Tested. One of the neat things was we had the FAA, we invited them to one of our initial trainings, and I had a quote in here. Let me see if I can find it. I stole this quote from the drone commander. He said, I need that quote. But this is what the FAA told us, quote, we wish all police departments would develop the level of training and policy your department has implemented for your drone programs. So that was pretty cool. So those were 2 guys straight from FAA come and look at our program. So that's kind of, right now we have 10, we started with 5. This fiscal year, we've spent $22,375 on the new 5 drones. That allows us to have 3 thermal and 2 of the small tactical drones. The 3 thermal can see at night. That's pretty neat, especially for search and rescue and other types of operations. And they have been used specifically to apprehend people and suspects, to keep the officers safe, to keep the public safe. And let me give you an example. We had information that a wanted violent felon, was at a local area park. We were able to send the drone up to see if the individual was that individual. We were able to confirm that, and we were able to follow him a safe distance away, making sure that there was nobody else there before we apprehended him. And he ran, and we were able to track him with the drone, even though the officers couldn't because he was jumping 3 yards. So that's something that the drone brings to the table as far as the technology aspect of it. And if there are any other questions on that?
Thank you. That was interesting to hear, and I'm glad to get some more information. I did have a quick question about the search warrant. Now, does that mean that you have to, if you've already gathered data through the drone, do you have to go back and retrospectively get a search warrant, or does this means that you can then get a warrant and utilize the drone moving forward into? I was a little confused on that.
So
Marina.
in order to, we can't retroactively go back and do that. So any flights that we anticipate, there's an entire process, and that's one of the things that the FAA remarked about, was we have a process in place where a lot of police departments, and I'm not going to name them, that we looked at, they just go fly the drone. They determine that they need to go do something and they go fly it. With us, it has an approval process. So they have to fill out an operational plan that says what they're going to do, what their intentions are, if a search warrant's been obtained through that, what the criminal aspect of this is. But it may not be a criminal aspect. It could be something as simple as for the torch run. Even for the torch run, we'll do a drone operational plan. So, but to actually have something of evidentiary value, where we're going to fly over a residence or something where we're going to record and obtain something for evidence for a criminal case, there has to be a search warrant obtained first before that operational plan will be approved.
Okay, thank you for clarifying that. And then for something like Zozobra, where there will potentially be a lot of data, a lot of, videos of the public, how long is that kept? How is it destroyed? I know there's a lot of concerns there around.
Deputy Chief Valdez oversees the administrative records part.
Wonderful. So a lot of concerns I know around that about, the police department having just video surveillance of our residents. So I'd love to hear a little bit more about how we are responsible with that.
Madam Chair, Councilor Cassett. So what we're able to do with the Axon project is we're able to fold in the drone data. So when we're fulfilling IPA requests and those types of items, it has to go through that process. So if it's going to be in a public place where anyone has access and you're, let's say, on the plaza or at a park, anyone can take video and that stuff is there. However, if they ask for our video, it has to go through that process, and city legal would go and conduct those reviews, determine what needs to be protected and those types of things. So it's in line with IPRA. As for retaining that data, once it's no longer needed to be retained, we are going to once that data is no longer needed to be retained, then it's going to be, released from our records and disposed of according to the retention schedule that's in place. So we don't have the bandwidth or the desire to just have tons and tons of video there. If it's relevant to a case that we're looking at or information that we need in the furtherance of a case, it's important to us at that point. But with any public record, it would fall under that scope, in addition to even the flight paths that come up. So if someone asks, hey, well, this drone was in my yard and here's this, and I have a complaint. Inside this software they have with Axon, we can actually see what the location was, who the drone pilot was, how long it flied, in the area, was it there, was it not there? And also all the certifications that they get through the FAA, they have to be uploaded in order for them to fly the drone. So we know that they're up to date on their training, they have all the requirements they need, and all that stuff is a repository for our records for validation. The video and that stuff, that'll fall under the retention schedule that's followed by the city in providing public records requests that are fulfilled by our city.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Counselor, can I add one thing?
Absolutely.
Sure, Counselor Cassett. One thing that we're trying to get there, we're not there yet. We're working it out with Axon, is the intention is full transparency. So that's why when we developed the program, we went into committees, we gave presentations, we put it on our social media pages to make sure that everybody was aware of this is what it is. We sent our policies to the New Mexican and local newspapers to make sure that they're aware of it. But what we're going to be able to do eventually is on our police department website, once to let the public know where the drone's been flying, we can put a path essentially. It doesn't show video, doesn't show anything private. What it does is just show it over Google Maps essentially where it was flying. And then if the individual wants to IPRA that and see what we were doing there, or it was recorded or it wasn't recorded, or there's available data for that, then that process that DC Valdez is talking about would take place.
Okay.
Getting there, we're not there yet, but it's coming.
Well, glad to hear how much information that you guys are giving out and really being transparent. I know it is something that makes people nervous. So I think really being upfront with this information is really important. So I really appreciate you taking the effort to do that. My other question has to do with response times. There was a bullet point in here, 9% increase number of calls, maintaining similar response times across priority 1 and 2 and improving for priority 3 calls for service. What do you happen to have the average response times at this point for each priority level? If not, you can send it over another time, but.
Turn this on. Madam Chair and Councilor Cassidy, I do have some data. It's not in averages necessarily. Let me see. Actually, it is going to be in averages. So for 2022, and we'll start with priority ones. We were at 7 minutes and 11 seconds, and that's the time that the officer receives a dispatch call to the time that they actually arrive on scene to provide service. That was 7 minutes and 11 seconds. For 2023, again, we had a 9% increase in our calls for service, but we were able to maintain it at 7 minutes and 37 seconds. So a slight few seconds of an increase. For priority 2 calls, we were at 8 minutes and 4 seconds for 2022. And for 2023, we increased that by 6 seconds to 8 minutes and 10 seconds. And priority 3s being the last, in 2022, we had 9 minutes and 5 seconds was our response times. Those are our lower priority calls. And in 2023, we were able to beat that at 8 minutes and 28 seconds. And those are all averages over the 12 months.
And this is important information, I think, for the public. This is from the point that the Santa Fe Police Department actually receives the dispatch. So what happens at RECC at the call center, that might change that response time. So this is when it basically comes into your system. Is that accurate?
Yes, that, Madam Chair, Councilor Cassidy, that would be when the officer actually receives the dispatch on the radio. They acknowledge that, and then they go en route to that call for service.
Okay, all right. Okay. I know that sometimes we have these conversations around RECC and what that looks like there and their staffing, probably a conversation for another time, as that is under the county. But I appreciate you providing that information and working to continue to improve those call times. I know that staffing up helps. So I'm hopeful that as has been mentioned before, we're really focusing on being competitive. And I know as a police department, this has really been a large conversation my entire time on council. And I do appreciate the improvements that you all have made. And I know there's been a lot of effort in not just pay, but also the culture of the police department. And I've heard a lot of really positive feedback. So I want to give credit to this leadership team for your work there. And thank you guys for that. And I will yield the floor.
Councilor Lee Garcia.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you all for what you do each and every day. I know this is a difficult, such a difficult area of our society and what, public safety. And I think many times I talk to police officers, especially those that are on the daily beat, sometimes may feel not thanked for what they do because it's a tough job. I think that, how do we recruit and keep people and have them want to join this profession because it's tough. Leads me into vacancies. So when we've been talking about vacancies for the last few years, especially since I've been on council, and have we lost any positions? Was it retirement or was it people moving to other agencies in the area?
Madam Chair, Councilor Garcia. So we do have numbers for that. So for 2020, I'll do 2022 and 2023. So for 2022, we hired 10 sworn, 5 cadets and 5 laterals, but we had 5 resignations and 6 retirements. And 2023, we had 13 hires, 7 cadets and 6 laterals, but we had 10 resignations and 5 retirements. And those resignations can stem from a variety of things, going to another agency or getting out of the profession altogether. That is also not uncommon, unfortunately.
Sure, thank you. Yeah, it's kind of put your finger on, where people are going, and obviously we want to try to create a culture where we want people to be a part of this team, and I think that's a big part of it. I think Councilor Cassett alluded to that in regards to culture of our organization. And I think that's really important. When I've talked to people, I think that's a big part of it. Obviously we need to be competitive. And so I just kind of wanted the numbers in regards to what we've gained and what we've lost. And it almost seems like we're hovering in just a stable, continuous vacancy rate. And so.
Right. And Madam Chair, Councilor Garcia, just to kind of give you an idea, when I started with this department, about 18 years ago, we were at 20 vacancies. And by the end of next month, assuming everything goes well with this lateral, we'll be at 19. So to say we generally hover around 20, and we'll do some years we do really well, and we'll get down to like 12 or 10, and other years struggle. And as we've seen, not unfortunately, we've got a lot of departments that are competing with us and trying to pull our people and go after the same applicants that we are. And so we're seeing that happen now. So it's a constant challenge and ebb and flow. And how do we compete with it with departments that are in our area? Of course, we work well with those departments. They're partner agencies of ours, but also we're battling with them for the same quality people.
I just have maybe some questions, or maybe can you elaborate a little bit on evidence? And so I know that we worked at improving our evidence tracking. I think that would be DC Valdez, maybe?
Yes, sir. This has been DC Valdez's say passion project, but I think certainly his project for years now, and so he's working hard on this project.
Councilor Garcia, so this is a long-term project we've been working on, and we're making a lot of progress. It's been very helpful for us to get the initial support we got, especially during the early days of COVID, funding from the governing body, support from our leadership to get our software system in place, to get some shelving in place, to get additional staff added to our crew. And we're making a lot of momentum, but we saw that we still need to fill vacancies. And the thing that we see with the current job market, and also with folks that are seeing other opportunities, we've seen where that's benefited our agency, where some of our evidence techs that were in the evidence room have advanced to crime scene techs. So I think right now, every one of them, as a matter of fact, came from the evidence room into the crime scene unit. But that benefits us because they understand the process from start to finish, and that makes us better. With us being able to deploy them now with our patrol teams, we're actually streamlining the process for our patrol teams so we can decrease those call for service times to free up that officer to go and handle other things. But we're still continuing to get things done to be on track to get certification through IEPE, which is a certifying board, and I can send you information on who that is. But they give us best practices and policies for evidence streams across the nation. The hard part for us is every day we have evidence coming in, and we're trying to offload evidence that we have on our shelves. And ideally, you'd have a one-for-one occurring. Sometimes that's able to occur, but again, progress is kind of tough sometimes, because in order for us to dispose of that evidence, we have to go through certain processes. If it's still being held in evidence because it's needed for prosecution, is it something that we need to track down? But also just trying to work through our old system, because we're living in two systems right now. Everything that new that comes in is in the new system, all the old stuff's in the old system. But as we offload it, we have to put it into the new system to dispose of it and to make sure we track what's there. So it's been a really good, a lot of great work by our staff just trying to manage all that. A big undertaking they did do was train all of our staff in our department to learn the new process, accept the new process, and understand the why we're doing this. And we've come a long way from when we had to come before this council and kind of fall on our sword and say, hey, look, here's the challenge that we have, and here's the way we need to fix it. And fortunately, we've been very successful with getting support from the council. And that's been evident with everything we've done, where we're not only focusing on the evidence part of it, but now we're expanding it to a system-wide process. And that's what Axon is for us, because the digital evidence we have from Axon, the digital evidence that we get from merchants and homeowners in the community, without that system in place, we would be in a very different place right now. There's no way we can take in that much data to hold in evidence from surveillance cameras, someone's smartphone, when they submit those photos or videos of a crime that occurred. So all that stuff is progress. It's an evolution. It's been really, really good. But there's still a lot of work that needs to be done. And some of the work, unfortunately, we can't lean on technology. We need staff to be able to do it. And I'm hopeful with some of these staff members that we have in background right now that we can get them on board, we get them trained up, and then we can just continue making a lot of those strides in the evidence room to get it where it needs to be. But the hard part is the inventory is still coming in as we're offloading inventory, so the work never stops. We can't call a timeout on this. So as the work is continuing, we're building up our staff and we're getting the job done. But we are still very focused on getting that done. That is a big priority for us. And that's something I want to see before I leave the department. And it's time for me to move on and see what challenges lie ahead. But for me, that's something that's very important to me. I think it's important for, one, our community to have the confidence back in our department that we are utilizing the best practices. But then two, we talk about the recruitment and retention side. For people wanting to join our department because we have those fantastic things in place, because we know our stuff and we are an example of how we do it, and we are establishing those best practices. So, and that's what actually retains, recruits folks, is having that sense that, hey, we are good. We are great at what we do. And I do want to thank you before I yield to let you know that I do appreciate you thanking our guys and gals, to let them know that they are appreciated, because we let them know. I know folks on this council and our community let them know. When they hear it from us, it feels good, but when they hear it from someone in the community, I tell you what, it means like way more for them. And I always encourage folks, I'll say, hey, I'll take that nice comment that you had, but if you happen to see them, please let them know, because it means the world to them. You know, the day that they have, that may be the nicest thing they heard that entire day. And it lets them know, hey, that was great, and I'm going to come out tomorrow and I'm going to try to do more to make a difference. So thank you for that, sir.
Thank you, DC Valdez. You know, I think that you're right. You know, as officers, especially those that are seeing things each day in and day out, I mean, from vehicle accidents to, you know, we had a very bad incident yesterday. And so, you know, I think it's psychologically, it's very trying on them, and also their families. And so thankful to their families for supporting them in this role. The evidence room in regards to Axiom, is that a software that crosses over to other agencies or would connect possible crimes that could happen in other jurisdictions?
Madam Chair, Councilor Garcia, so Axon is our evidence, our digital evidence, body worn camera, and we're putting other systems in there. We're also doing our records management system. So for us, it's a one-stop hub for everything that we have. We are looking and exploring other avenues because New Mexico State Police, other large agencies, they're looking for a central repository to be able to share information, because oftentimes the folks involved in the criminal world, they're not only doing crimes in Santa Fe, but also in neighboring jurisdictions. So we may have information on them. If we have a good lead on them, the heat is on here in Santa Fe, they'll move on to a different community and they have no information on that person. So if someone is arrested, or if they have a history of certain crimes, or if we're looking for a certain vehicle that's involved in certain crimes, being able to share that information has always been a challenge for law enforcement. And it's unfortunate because it goes back several decades, but I know that the leadership of state police, they are very much committed to getting this done. And they're trying to push out that message to all agencies throughout the state. And for us, we want to hear what they want to do. And for us, if it's something that is going to benefit us and our entire state, we certainly want to participate in that. And when it comes time for us to discuss the memorandums of agreements or understandings that need to occur at that point, we want to bring it back to the council and say, hey, is this something that we could participate in? Because it's going to benefit not only our community, but surrounding communities, but also it's going to be reciprocatory where those incidents are happening outside of Santa Fe.
Yes, I mean, have a business, and very many times have issues that happen at my stores, and they cross over from the county to the city, or the city to the county, or county to Espanola, city of Espanola, Rio Arriba County, and things of that nature. And so a lot of times these crimes that are happening cross over jurisdictions. I think that's a very important tool that we could utilize to help solve a lot of the crimes that are happening. One last question about evidence, and I know that many times I'm asked to upload video from my cameras, and I do that, but yet sometimes I don't know if it got to anybody. And so I don't know if that's there's a way of letting the public who is helping out to supply that type of footage or things of that nature that it was received. And so I don't know if that's if that's a capability of our system or not.
Councilor Garcia, that's, again, for us, we looked at that, process as a way to be more convenient for folks so they can upload things. But, sometimes, again, just an email back from the officer saying, hey, sir, I received your video. It's been uploaded. I'll let you know if there's any more information. Those are things that we can work on and improve. And I think that's good feedback we can get back to our officers. And something else that we're looking to do, we were able to finally staff up our crime prevention sergeant position. And as we're chipping away at vacancies, we are going to be staffing our crime prevention and police community relations unit. Right now, it's just been a one-person show. Officer Montoya has been doing a lot of the events, working anywhere from 7 days a week to 3 weeks straight at times because of her level of dedication. And we actually need to let her know, like, hey, you need to slow down. You know, you got to take a breather because if not, you can hit the wall. So once we staff up those units, that is something we're looking to do, is to reach out to the community. We've already done some work in some of the neighborhoods where businesses are at. I know they're like the Sadler Rufino community. We let them know, hey, here's what we have, but just giving them information on how to upload to Axon is one thing. And then getting that follow-up with the officer to let them know, hey, we received it, we're good to go. So you know, as a business owner, that it's being taken care of. We had the information we need, or if there's an error that came through, we can always communicate that back to the person. But that's something we'll take back to our staff and share with them. But we also want to do an education piece with a lot of businesses, because the trends that we see through our crime prevention unit is a lot of folks are experiencing the same thing. And you'll have the same thing like we're talking about jurisdictions. One business will take a very good stance and say, hey, we're going to do these recommendations, surveillance cameras. We're going to put some items to keep people from breaking in. We're going to band together with our neighbors right here to keep an eye out for each other. And people, they see what's happening, and they'll move on to another area where it is a softer target, where they are not working together. There is no surveillance video, and they pick up that, hey, we can go and get away with this, so we're going to start to roam in this area. We're trying to get a concerted effort with all our businesses, even to the point where we can say, hey, look, here's what we're looking to do, because we get people are facing challenges and struggles. But at some point, you know, it's like, if you need help, we're offering it. Please take it. Don't be going to the store and stealing from someone. And honestly, if you ask someone for something, it may even help you out. We have a lot of great people here in Santa Fe. But the frustration that we hear from the business owners and from people that are shopping alike, they would like to see that change a little bit. So we're going to see what we can do to kind of change that trajectory. But we're going to be working with our business owners and our neighborhoods to get that going. And Erica's been a big part of that with our Neighborhood Watch program. We've seen a lot more involvement, engagement lately, where people want to work together to improve the safety in their neighborhoods. And I can name off a bunch of people that work with that have been great advocates for this, but we want to get that stuff going up and running, because my hope is that'll help out our officers in the field with their workload. If we have people that are working together to get us the information we need, our officers in the field can be more successful, we can deter crime, and we can start looking at some of the root issues instead of just chasing our tail and trying to, you know, figure things out all on our own. You know, working together is where we're going to get a lot more success in that.
Thank you. One question around training, and so, you know, obviously we how many hours of training are we training alternatively for, you know, obviously lethal force is at times needed, but how we are looking at de-escalation type of strategies or alternative methods other than, you know, lethal force?
Madam Chair, Councilor Garcia, training also falls under DC Valdez and his staff. So.
Madam Chair, Councilor Garcia, I can get you the exact number of training hours, but at a bare minimum, every officer has to complete 40 hours of crisis intervention and de-escalation training. That's what's required by the Law Enforcement Academy. In addition to that, the Santa Fe Police Department has gone above and beyond, and usually about every year or two, we also have them go through a refresher class where it's 8 hours, and it's really scenario based, and it's working with people that are experiencing crisis, strategies that we can utilize to help de-escalate the situation, so it can hopefully improve better outcomes for situations. Something though that we have to keep in mind though is those techniques will work as long as you have a person that's willing to participate in it. If there's no communication, and if they're not willing to engage in a dialogue, and they are committed to creating chaos, or they're committed to attacking someone in a violent manner, at that point, we have to respond to, again, either protect someone else's life or the protection of our officers. They have to defend themselves. But we try to do a lot of things to avoid that. And I think through a lot of the programs that the city has, it's evident that we have an officer that, you know, is assigned to the ARE unit that helps them with their training. Where pretty much right now, they're almost able to stand on their own with training, and they're training each other like kind of a peer-to-peer. And, but having those lines of communication are helpful because for us, now we have a friend in the business that we can call and say, hey, look, we've seen this happen, or this person's starting to increase in their agitation. What can we do to kind of, you know, head this off so we can get this person the services, or at least the bare minimum, let them know that we're ready to get them services when they're ready. Because sometimes it has to be a voluntary situation that they have to go to services. But that is very, very important for us, and it has been for some time for us to let people know we're here to help people. And situations that we get put in sometimes, at least for the last couple of decades since I've been in law enforcement, I'm glad to see that we've evolved in the era of where we are providing people that are trained to help people in crisis, because that was not the case a long time ago. It was send the police or send the fire department, and they'll figure this out. Unfortunately, the police, for us, those things, some of them didn't end up the way we would like to see them, and that's nationwide. But just work with people in crisis, the big thing that we have to go and just convey to our staff is, go in there with a heart, with compassion. Let someone know that you care about them. Work on that rapport and communicate. Communication is key for us with our staff. That is something that we really harp on every new candidate that joins our organization. They want to be a police officer. We want them to know that communication is key. We need great communicators. We need folks that can think on their feet. We need to be able to problem solve, because that's going to be the vast majority of your job. And because of the things that we mentioned before, we also talk about wellness, like how do you deal with stress? That's far from the interview that I know the three of us had when we first joined law enforcement, because that stuff does, you know, get carried with folks. And it's hard because, again, we're putting them in the most trying situation. We're trying to equip them the best way we can with skills, training, experience, scenarios, so they can help to work to that. And if they can at least try to mitigate the situation, and if time is allowable, get other resources there. You know, we have a mobile crisis response team that can come out if we ask for them to come out. You know, if they need services and they're willing to, we have ARU to help us connect them with groups. I know the Connect program helps people that are struggling with things, and if we can get their basic needs met and they're willing to participate, they could hopefully avoid a lot of the stuff where they're doing acts out of desperation to just either fuel their addiction or to just get a meal, where people, you know, oftentimes they'll say, hey, I haven't eaten in a couple of days. So those are things that we try to do, but just the human side of things, humanizing what we do and the work that we do, we have to equip our folks to a lot of things, because one second you could be on a car crash, next second you be dealing with someone in crisis, next second you could be administering Narcan to someone. And, you know, it's very challenging for them. They have to be a jack of all trades and ready to pivot based on demand.
Thank you, DC Valdez. And I think that I'm not going to ask the question, but just, you know, make the statement for you know, our time commitment. DC Chapman.
Councilor Garcia, and one thing that might be of interest to you, and I don't have it to provide right now, but our use of force policy is a robust policy. And it's a very long policy, but it's very robust. A big part of that is de-escalation. And it gets to be very in-depth in that. And so if you're interested in seeing a copy of that, or having an opportunity to review that, we can provide that.
Thank you. Yes, I'd be happy to get that and be able to review it. Going to, you know, I think we've talked about this with fire and how also officers, after incidents happen, you know, psychologically, this is really tough on them as well. And so I don't know if part of your budget is also has moved towards focusing on, you know, counseling services for officers when they are going through these type of, and then it can be a quick answer.
I'm going to make it quick. I know the mayor will appreciate this. Yes, sir. We were the first in the city to have services provided to our staff for trauma. We started with this several, probably I think about 10 years ago. We had Dr. Gil Martin. He came out, he's doing training down south, and he talked about the human side of what officers experience through their career and after. So for us, that gave us a springboard to look at counseling services at no cost to our staff. They can go anonymously. I get the bill at the end of the month, and it says X amount of sessions were provided. So they're not worried about, are they auditing who's going? Are they trying to get this and that done? We just want them to get those services. And again, if they need to go, and if they're experiencing something on shift, we're like, if they're available, jump in a conference room, you know, you could jump online with our provider and you can have a session there either on Zoom or you can schedule for a follow-up, and we're all gonna make it happen because we care about our folks. Again, it's not a slogan, like we're trying to keep our talented staff. We want them to know that they're cared for and they're loved, they're appreciated. If you tell someone that you love them and you care about them and you send them to harm's way, guess what they're gonna do for you? They're gonna do their very best each and every time. And that's what we want our folks to know is when you have to go into those trying times, we care about you, we love you, and we're gonna make sure that we give you all the training that we can so you can succeed in that situation.
And Madam Chair, Counselor Garcia, $40,000 were included as a contract for counseling services. That includes pre-hire assessment for the psychological, as well as services after hire with counseling service for the service that DC Valdez was speaking about, that they can reach out to voluntarily and get services, or for critical incident debriefs, or just fit for duty examinations.
Have we used up the 40,000 usually every year?
We usually get pretty close. Because our officers, at first, I'm like, are they really gonna use it? I was taken back because it's not just our officers that utilize it, it's people in evidence, because when they're putting together the case files for crimes and that kind of stuff, they see the video from the body cams and that stuff when they have to compile that stuff for the court system. So it's open to any of our staff at the police department, because whether it's typing a report, reviewing evidence to prepare for a case, they all experience trauma, so it's open to anyone that's in the organization. But for us, we do utilize it. We get pretty close to utilizing it at the end of each year. And everyone, we encourage them to use it. And accessibility is the biggest thing for us, though. We don't want them to think, hey, I have to go to shift and I can't take care of this. If you're struggling with something, we want you to go and get the help that you need, and that comes first and foremost.
We've seen more usage of it each year that it's been in place, which is a good thing. And I think that's, again, part of the culture change that Councilor Cassett referenced. Under officers that are more willing and more in touch and more responsive to their own needs and mental health. I think there's been a lot of positive change in that regard within our profession.
Thank you, Chief Joy. Last question, in regards to budgeting, I know that we do have a director that is vacant at this point for the whole overall Community Health and Safety Department. And does part of your budget go to fund that position?
Madam Chair, Councilor Garcia, I believe the funding for that position comes out of fire.
Okay. Thank you. Just a point of clarification. No more questions, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Other questions from the committee? Councilor Faulkner, and I just remind us, we do have one more budget still tonight.
For the sake of time, Councilor Garcia actually did a good job of asking most of the questions I was going to ask. So I do want to thank you guys for what you do for the community. I know that sometimes it's thankless, and that sometimes the community doesn't quite understand how much you put into the jobs you do. And so I've never had a bad interaction with the Santa Fe police officer. And so I just want to thank you.
Thank you, Council.
Yeah, I want to thank the committee. I think the questions around the evidence room, the UAS program, the training, those were all the questions I had. Could certainly dive into the UAS a little bit more, but because we still have another budget, I won't. Also want to say thank you to your teams for what you do. I know it's hard work. And yeah, I think there are lots of things we could talk about. But again, given the fact that we still have one more budget, I think we're going to move on. But really appreciate the conversation and the presentation and the work you're all doing. So thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Do we have a motion on this budget? Motion to approve. We have a motion and a second to approve this budget. Can we get a roll call, please?
Absolutely, Madam Chair. Councilor Cassett.
Yes.
Councilor Faulkner.
Yes.
Councilor Lee Garcia.
Yes.
Councilor Lindell. Chair Romero Worth.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Have a good afternoon.
Thank you. You as well.
All right, one more. The fire department, not last, but not least. look at you guys. You see, you guys got the cool water bottles too. You're true to brand. The last guys, they had the black ones, and you have the white ones. All right, it's pretty spiffy. All right, so floor is yours. Take it away. Introduce your team as needed,
Okay,
and necessary.
thank you.
and-
Madam Chair, member of the Finance Committee, thank you so much. I know you guys have been working hard, so I set us a timeline. So I'm gonna do a big overview, and then I'm gonna let my team speak on their behalfs on their two operations and support. So I'm gonna do it a little differently, but I feel like hearing me talk for 15 to 20 minutes might not be as welcoming, and so I'm gonna spread it across the board. So if you wanna change the slide for me, please.
Not sure who is doing this. Oh, there we go.
So, Madam Chair, members of the Finance Committee, I think I will talk specifically about this budget, and this budget went to my most important resource, and that is all my people. The union and I did a great thing, and we put a lot of money into this, into these people, and it has really paid dividends. I've had people in my department that wanted to retire, and they've now come back to me and says they want to stay. I know last year at Finance, we had the issue with people jumping to Los Alamos. I think with this budget, it has changed a lot of minds. It's changed a lot of hearts. It's made people realize that we care about them. I've had captains in this department hit $100,000 with 20 years of service. So I think that is a great thing that we're doing here. So on the retention side of the house, I think now I have more people that are eligible to retire, around 20 to 22 people. We just hit a big class 2-2, that were eligible to retire, and I was really worried that they were going to start to bail on us. So by doing these things, it's going to keep us staffed at a very high rate, and it's going to make things a lot better for me moving into the future. On recruitment, it's going to help the people coming into this department. The class and comp for the union employees, it brought them up about $10,000. So most of these firefighter trainees that we were hiring were coming in at 38,000 with no experience. We immediately hit 48,000. So that is something that will really help them. And then after year one, and when they hit the union ranks, they would be going up to 59. So I really feel like this has really helped them, really helped us, say we can use that in our selling points moving forward. On the non-union side, the class and comp is working. We can always improve, but I think it's a great start. We don't have as many in the non-union side, and that includes me, but I think we're moving in the right direction, and I think we're trying to improve the people in this department, and that's what I strive to do every day, is try to make these people better, and we put all the money there, and I think that's a great thing. My low vacancy rate, I'm very proud of that. In my admin staff, there's 2 people. And so that's 2 admin assistants, 1 admin specialist, and 1 admin person. In my operations, I had 15, and that's Martinez's department. We had 15 vacancies, and 14 are pending. So they're sitting in HR right now, hopefully going to get letters sent out. So that is a great thing. So we have 1 vacancy in ops. If we can get these 14 to accept and get them into the academy in July. And on our support side, we had 6 vacancies, and 3 are pending. So we have 3 more people that are sitting up in HR waiting to get recommendation letters. So on my low vacancy rates, I just strive on how I've come over the last 2 years to try to improve having 2 academies a year. I think the lower the vacancy rate, the more people we have in the field, the more people understand we can put more units on the street. I've gotten rid of 4-man fire trucks, and I've put everybody on 3. And when we have extra staffing, I add more units to the street. So it is helping the overall calls of the department. And that's why I say we build from the base. I think what I've learned over the years is those are our most important resources, are the people at the beginning of their careers. They're the people that are here for the long term, if we can keep them here. And those are the people that eventually be sitting up here. Because you ain't going to see, for the most part, assistant chiefs or chiefs, hopefully, come from outside. So I think that is something that's really helped moving forward. So that is kind of the overall picture. If we can go to the next slide, and I'm gonna let Chief Martinez talk about, operational side, major accomplishments.
Madam Chair, committee, I'm Assistant Chief Freddie Martinez. I'm a little loud, so you might need some earplugs. So for us, which is major accomplishments, really it kept it real basic. We didn't go into the weeds on it, but we ran 24,112 calls. That's including 19,732 emergency calls and 4,380 ARF standbys. So the ARF program has grown so exponential at the airport, which we're excited about. Everyone in this room was excited about that. They jumped up to about 7 departures with 7 arrivals a day, which we started with 1 or 2. They just added another flight in April, 2 more in April and 1 more in May. So we are growing to the point where we're going to have 10 arrivals and 10 departures where the ARF team will be there, knowing what we're running out of there are CRJ 700s. And that means, for layman's terms, a minimum of 78 people on board. So these people are really on by knowing the fuel, knowing the personnel that are there, being ready to respond on a standby for whether it's 20 calls a day for up to 82 people on these flights. So it's a major, major jump in what the fire department's doing on that side. Our call volume, obviously, with the emergency calls has gone up quite a bit. We're running a lot more fires, around 410 fires. I'll go into the extra staffing on how that's helped out. And that was this last year. Call volume, of course, is going to continue to grow as the city grows. But as the chief said, we've strategically in-house made adjustments to be able to accommodate that as much as possible on our end. One thing that gets really passed over a lot is I think a lot of times we get fixated on what calls are reported as far as like things that the fire department does on emergency calls, but there's so much more that's done. And my second bullet is that the engaged in the community outreach. We're at over 300 events this year where we had firefighters on trucks and our fire prevention staff where they're out there just getting the trust of the public, really being engaged in the community. And that went from wet downs, the teen center openings, flying the flag. You guys see that, the honor guard out at different events, Santa Claus on the plaza, blood drives, just anything you can really think of. What we try to do is utilize our platform to bring some positivity into the city. And that way, when people see the fire department, it's not just a negative thing. It's actually something to throw some high fives and smiles. And I really feel strongly about the community outreach and utilizing our platform in that. So to have that many events, and that's not even including the Reading Across Americas we do constantly, the Halloween and Easter events were there, NDI, which I hope you all attend this next week. And, over 1,000 kids that we interact with for a week period, which will volunteer. So not even including that within the 300 events. So it's just amazing to see what these guys and gals go above and beyond and just really get out there and interact with the community. I think utilizing our platform in that way is super important. The next one is achieve 6 full saves from cardiac arrest. So I'm going to go into that just a little bit because it may sound like a small number. And when I say 6 full saves, like we saved a life, everyone thinks fire department saves lives. So yes, we've cut people out of cars. We pull people out of fires. We do Narcan administration. What I'm talking about on these 6 saves, these are people that were in full cardiac arrest. And for better sense of the word in layman's terms, they were pretty much about to die. And with just the collaborated work and help and training from our training division, the fire truck, the 3 on that fire truck that were advanced EMTs and just senior experienced EMTs on those trucks, and then joining up with the ambulance who has our paramedic advanced life support and the EMT on that truck. And those 5 people, getting all 5 there on that scene because we had the fire truck and the ambulance respond and being able to collaboratively start an IV, do CPR, get this person to the hospital, and minutes matter. 6 people are alive because of that. 6 people that their families, I get a little emotional with this because it means a lot, right? So 6 people are going to spend a birthday with their loved ones. 6 people that want to experience Christmas with their loved ones will, because these guys and girls went above and beyond, and the training and everything as this teamwork that came out. For me, that just meant a lot. And it's actually a pretty big number considering just off of the cardiac arrest side. As far as staffing extra apparatus, like the chief said, there was 4-man fire trucks or just extra people on one ambulance or whatnot. We started staffing extra trucks, meaning whether it's our brush truck or it's our another ambulance out in the city. If we have a paramedic, we're not forcing holdovers and forcing them to work over hours. And what that's done is dropped call volume for those other units and alleviated that intense stress. And just to give kind of a basic, breakdown of that, one of our busiest units is Ladder 7. District 7 is just blown up for us. It's so busy. It's our second busiest unit with 3,421 calls last year. our brush truck that comes out of that station to help alleviate some of those calls, encampment fires, getting into these off-road terrains. We're not taking trucks and ambulances down there, being able to help with those types of calls. Those individuals ran 1,233 calls that would have otherwise been these fire trucks. That second truck at Ladder 7 would have had those 1,000 calls compounded on that. So strategic staffing and just utilizing the resources that we already have, the resources we already have to staff strategically, we're able to kind of alleviate some of the burden of those individuals that are out there running every day. So like I said, I could have went into the weeds and told you about all the amazing fires and everything we've done all year and all that, but really, I think those were the key points of just keeping it generalized. Next slide. As far as my goals go for, or the operations goals, sorry, not mine, but the operations division's goals go for the next year would be ensure personnel safety and wellness. So over the years, we've seen calls have just become a lot more gory. The world's gotten a lot more intense and people are dealing with a lot more stuff. And we've seen a real uptick in the operation side of these guys really struggling at home and really struggling after calls and just taking these home, you know, and instead of running 20 calls a day or a tour, they're running 30 or 40. And it's just a lot to see, a lot to tell someone something about their family or that or the other. What we really want to do, we have gotten PSPG, which is a psychology group that helps with our firefighters and they can go to counseling, they can do things of that nature, have a debrief after a really gory call or a debrief after a code or a death. We also started a peer support group that internally, and that peer support group has individuals from within our department that have already gone through stuff like this and maybe gone through the whole gambit of the program, and they can actually reach out to these individuals, one on each shift, and they are getting extra training from an outside source, and to kind of just give these people a platform or an avenue to kind of just decompress when maybe they don't want to publicize it and they want it to be confidential, and just kind of giving them that avenue. And then it also comes into that is being, you know, physically fit. We've seen, you know, the uptick of heart attacks, cancer, all that kind of stuff from being out of shape and going from a dead sleep to a heart rate of 150, right, on a fire call or a code or something of that nature at night. So what we've done we're making sure that they're staying physically fit, you know, they're getting their workout hours that you guys had put through with the safety and wellness. Thank you to you guys for a lot of that. And just really changing the culture within the fire service of understanding that we are a family and we are united in this, and that we do want to hear, we do care. And it's okay to come and cry on anyone's shoulder. It's okay to come and have a conversation. It's okay to talk about stuff. And we really need to hold ourselves accountable in the sense of being able to be ready, in shape, fit, and ready to respond also. So kind of just taking that whole collaboration of safety and wellness. Also implementing technology and innovation. Obviously we're evolving in the world in general. So we're just trying to use any form of technology we can utilize. We did get our first arriving informational dashboards. We have a screen at every station that when a call comes up, it'll populate the information of the call with also a map and the address and some more information to kind of get us a faster response, get us kind of out the door, already kind of having an idea of where we're headed. We also utilize that to get information out to the entire department, whether it's training, it's protocols, any kind of resources, things that are going on, information from within the city, QR codes that can get them to different forms, things of that nature, just really trying to bring everyone together in a real fluid way to get the information out there aside from just emails or text. We're trying to implement touchscreen response on our MDTs. So our MDTs are our response data terminals, or multi-data terminals. And we're working on implementing for this next year where when our firefighters get called to a call, they can just go en route by hitting en route and go back in service by hitting back in service. On scene, they have these touch buttons that kind of have them navigated within the screen. And that way they're not flooding dispatch or Santa Fe with that information of having to pair it back, having to pair it to. That way we can, you know, free them up to get us information, right? They're on the phone and they're having to pause that to kind of say, yes, you know, Med 3's there, whatnot. So just really using technology to get us to the next level on giving people the best response we can. We also added our Verkada camera system and keyless door entry. For the longest time, people had access to the fire station that had been retired for 20 years. We're at the point now where everyone has a keyless card entry, and the second they either retire or whatnot, we can change those codes. If we have any kind of risk, we can change the key card access. We can give people access to certain timeframes so they have access to where they need to have it and not where they don't. And also the camera system, because we want to make sure not only are the crew's safe inside and everything's like that, but also their vehicles outside. We've had instances where we've had people break into the stations. We've had instances where things have come up missing, and also even at night where cars are getting vandalized. We also have created a data set of all the employee information that we truly didn't have, just trying to really clean up our data set of everybody's demographics, information, contact info, their emergency contacts. Surprisingly enough, that really wasn't established to this point. So we have gone to that point also. Youth engagement and outreach is kind of says something we did great, but I think we can always do more. I really am a big believer that the youth is the foundation of our city, and the youth is the foundation of our society. And I feel like if you can utilize our platform to bring a little bit of compassion, bring a little bit of interest and to the city of Santa Fe, and just let them know what firefighters are all about and what the city of Santa Fe is all about, then we can be out there with these individuals and maybe not even just recruiting, but maybe just bring a little bit of compassion and kindness back to the society that we're part of. And I feel like I said, the youth is the foundation of the city. And if you want to fix anything and everything that's going on anywhere, you start at the foundation. So for us, a big goal is to let us do our part as you guys do all your part, touch some hearts and some minds of the young youth out there and make it.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, Committee. My name is Steen Johnson, Assistant Chief, and I am overseeing the support services in the fire department. So that's everything that is not the guys out running the calls. That includes our fleet mechanics, our training division, fire prevention, our EMS quality management, our MIH division, and our health and safety. I'd like to start out with some support services accomplishments. Over the past year, we have rolled out 2 new medic units, Medic 8 and Medic 2. Those are replacement ambulances, and we've also replaced Engine 1 and Rescue 3. These trucks are used heavily every day and are on a rotation to keep them up in good shape. And we appreciate having a nice truck and a nice apparatus. With each of those apparatus, we incorporate a concept called a clean cab concept. That is separating our firefighters' bunker gear that becomes soiled and dirty with a lot of soot and toxins, separate that from the passenger cab of the apparatus and actually store it in a separate compartment in the vehicle. So it's easily accessible still, but it doesn't sit on the seats in the trucks every day for hours and hours, or the firefighters and EMTs are not sitting on their gear that whole time. Other great accomplishment was the hiring personnel over the last year. We've hired another heavy mechanic in our fleet division. We've contracted a new EMS medical directors. We've promoted or hired a behavioral health manager full-time, an EMS captain. We've promoted our first health and safety captain in the department history, and our second case manager supervisor in our MIH division. We've implemented the state's first EMS buprenorphine pilot program, and that is a medication that many may not be familiar with. I think most people in this day and age are very familiar with Narcan, that reverses an overdose of an opiate drug. Well, the buprenorphine is a drug that kind of bridges someone who has overdosed and been given Narcan, bridges that person for a longer period of time through detox and then hopefully into recovery. So our EMS division has been working very hard on that. We're the first in the state to implement that program, and we're excited and very proud of that. We continued health and safety programs for the year, our firefighter physicals that we do annually. The key to cure of disease is early detection. And our firefighter physicals that we do every year help to identify that. We've had a lot of great stories, success stories of early identification of some cancers and some disease that we've been able to address early on. Every time we soil our bunker gear, we wash that bunker gear. So we have a great contract with a company in Albuquerque that washes our bunker gear after each fire. And again, like I mentioned before, in our vehicles, we have the clean cab concept, which helps to decrease the exposure to toxins. We've implemented the semi-annual hiring of cycles of cadets in our training academies. We've realized that recruitment has been a challenge over the last several years. We're not getting the 200-300 candidates that we used to see 10, 15 years ago. So we've scaled back to running smaller academies, but we're doing them twice a year, and that seems to be a success in what we've accomplished in the last year or last couple of years. Next slide, please. Now I'll move into our major goals for support services. We look forward to expanding mobile integrated health and our ARU services, exploring opportunities to expand our buprenorphine program, hire and train new case managers. That's actively ongoing right now. Hiring a third auto mechanic into our fleet division. As these hardworking gentlemen like to remind us, without them, we walk to calls. We're looking forward to the adoption of the 2021 International Fire Code. That'll be a good goal for us. And we are also expecting to receive 2 new aircraft rescue firefighting trucks over the next year, probably a year from now. These are big trucks that live out at the airport. They're specialty built. They take about 2 years to build. So we've ordered them and they are expected to arrive next April. And that's in preparation or in congruent with the huge expansion of the airport and the incoming flights. So that'll be a good thing for the airport as well in the city. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. That's quite a lot.
Madam Chair, I'll save everything else and we'll stand for questions.
Great. The hour is late. I'll just note, questions from the committee. Councilor Faulkner.
If it is the case that part of your funding is being used for this larger directorate position, I would really appreciate if we could find a way to get some funding back to the fire department so they can get more people. Because I know it's probably a sizable position as far as like probably $100,000 or more. And I think they could get more bodies in service if we were going to take that money and apply it to directorate. I would like to see us also try to give them compensate them somehow for that. 'Cause I think it'd be a lot of help to get more firefighters out there. And then also just thanks, guys. You guys gave me a ride to the hospital one time and it was awesome as far as those things go. So thank you.
Councilor Cassidy.
Thanks so much, Madam Chair. Thank you, gentlemen, for being here. I will try to be speedy. I did want to hear a little bit more about MIH and ARU and what are the schedules right now? And when we say expansion, are we looking at expanding the hours that the ARU is operating? Really excited about the pilot that I will not try to, every time I try to say the name medication, I mess up and Faith has to correct me. So I won't do it again. But would love to just hear what those hours are looking like, what expansion is looking like. I know that we were able to get 2 new ambulances on and that's helped operations, if I'm correct there. And so wanted to hear what's going on over here too.
Madam Chair, Councilor Cassett, thank you for the question. Our hope to expand MIH and ARU is to get back to full staff with our case managers, and that will help, of course, expand our program again and get back to where we were before. Also, with the ARU specific, our hours are 8 to 5, Monday through Friday. We would love to expand those hours. I think our biggest challenge with that is having community partners to support us. Our teams are out there troubleshooting and trying to fix problems that are unusual to police and fire in a historic sense. So they try to be creative and connect people to different services. But with those services shut down at 5, then they're pretty limited in their ability to do so. Our best partner right now is the CTC. Crisis Triage Center, and they do have a mobile integrated, or they do have a mobile crisis team that is available 24/7. We partner with them and utilize them quite often. The other expansion, I guess, is the buprenorphine program. It's a tough one. It's a tongue twister. So Captain Applewhite was instrumental in bringing that program to the department. She's worked very hard with that, and we hope to expand. She's the only one right now, the only EMS captain that's administering that drug. We hope to expand that drug to the other EMS captains too.
Wonderful. And that is a state pilot, correct? So that is coming down from partnership and some dollars from the state as well?
Madam Chair, Councilor Cassett, yes, we haven't realized state funding quite yet on that, but it is a state supported program. The Department of Health EMS Bureau is very supportive of that. The state medical director is very excited about this program. They're all watching this and hoping that it'll kind of sweep the state and go in different directions.
And then in terms of, right now, we just have Captain Applewhite, who is trained to do this. And will you guys be conducting trainings with the rest of your team? Is this only going to be MIH that will be administering this, or is this going to be moving through all of, everyone that's in EMS, and how
Madam
far does
Chair.
this spread?
Sure, Madam Chair, Councilor Cassett. So we're taking this kind of at a slow approach, being the first one in the state to roll this out. So I think that our next step would be to expand it to the other 2 EMS captains that we have on staff, train them, and expand our ability to provide the medication.
Okay, thank you. And then I'm sorry, real fast back to ARU. I know we had previously talked about having 2 units, and then I've heard that only 1 is operational right now. Where are we with that?
Councilor Cassett, Madam Chair and Councilor Cassett. So we are sure we're hopeful to expand to more multiple units. I guess I would love to do that. I think my hope would be to have more case managers to support the ARU, so that there's a bit larger ability to make referrals and to follow up with those patients.
Okay.
Madam Chair, Councilor Cassett, I'll add into that. So we didn't get anything expanded this year, so we're sticking to what we have. So repeat again, all our money went to our current employees, so we didn't get to expand case managers. We didn't get to expand in any direction. So we did have an EMS captain position that was frozen for a while, so it just got released. So we'll be able to put 1 more person in that division. So we are trying to work out the details, but a lot of what we're gonna have to do is work within our means of no expansion in any direction in the fire department.
Right. I know we flat budgeted you, but I do want to say, to your point about the pay raises, again, very, very happy to see that this was something that was able to be worked out this year. I know that there's been a lot of conversation around recruitment and retention, and that very happy to hear that this is helping. So just wanted to congratulate your department for really working on this. I know that was a bit of a heavy lift, but we're happy to see that that's going to be assisting everyone and making sure that we're staffed over here. No further questions.
Councilor Garcia.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Also, again, thank you for what you guys do for our community. We, just like PD, you guys run to danger to help people. And so, again, thank you all. I just wanted to, I started my question somewhat with police in regards to a directorship that is currently vacant. And the answer was that the funding for that position comes out of your budget. I think Councilor Faulkner alluded to this a little bit. what is our, and this may be for the mayor, because what is our intention with this position, and how are we strategically gonna work with fire to work out this funding, and who ends up where, so to speak? Yes.
Thank you, Counselor. When the original reorganization took place, at that time, a position from fire was utilized to create the directorship that is the overview that you asked about previously in terms of the structure, providing the coordination and integration. We have been out recruiting, try to fill the position that Director Cho left behind. And hopefully we'll be able to fill it in the near term. I think the benefits are pretty substantial in terms of coordination and collaboration. And it is simply a way to fund or to pick a position that we're able to utilize, get that position created in the first place. It's been ongoing. It's not a new development.
Thank you. Yeah, just, again, that's where my interest has been lately, and obviously there is a big void there with Director Ochoa not being here, and obviously we don't have somebody to fulfill that. But again, in regards to how the budget works, and it definitely does come into the department. I mean, this is obviously the budget team. This is decisions from management, and so you know, could that monies from that position go to another ARU unit or more personnel or so on and so forth. And so, again, more conversation to be had, I believe, and those are the main questions that I have. So thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Counselor. It is your intent to fill that position, correct?
Absolutely.
Yeah, and this very large department needs a leader at the top to coordinate all the components.
I think it's I think the benefits have been demonstrated, that we get a lot of, and I thought the presentation about all the different ways that homelessness is addressed really makes the point. When you think about, we didn't ask our police officers, but I've asked the chief in the past, if we had a solution to homelessness, what would it do to police calls? And the answer is it would substantially reduce them, even though the ARU and the park rangers are making relevant interventions and supporting police. It's still the case that an awful lot of the issues that revolve around homelessness end up in the police department's calls for service. So it is really a team effort to try to address some of these issues that are both social policy matters and public safety matters, and they go together. They're two sides of the same coin. So yeah, we're aggressively looking for somebody. I personally take it very much to heart that Director Ochoa left, and she's basically dead to me. I'll never speak to her again. I take it very much. I have, just for all you guys to know this, I have separation issues, so I don't want to hear anything about anybody leaving anytime soon. Now she's hard to replace. She was a phenomenal talent and a great leader, and really took on a challenge, which is to weave all these pieces together that historically have been very proud to be on their own operations and with their own missions, but to try to blend them into a complete whole that the public gets the benefits of. Took a great act of leadership on her part and the team that she put together. And I have to say, it was very, I was very sad to see her leave, and it was a tearful departure. But we are working to look for a suitable replacement, and to continue to bring all these elements together into a composite picture that the public can see how it benefits them very clearly.
And in terms of funding for ARUs, I mean, didn't we use some federal money for that?
Madam Chair, Counselor Romero, we've had some. We still have one that is on a grant. Everything else has been hard funded. I think my mission has been to always hard fund the whole thing, and keep doing it that way, because it always, like COVID came and we lost some things. So my goal is to hard fund everything.
But when you say hard fund, what do you mean by that?
That means put it hard into the budget so people can't take it out and make it so these positions are set in the budget permanently and it's not, you know, we're gonna try to expand in a direction and then in 3 years let's figure it out. Like
Mhm.
I think that was a problem we've had is, you know, we would have these great ideas and then 3 years from now we'd come to it and here's COVID. Or here is we gave it all to the people and we don't have the funding to expand in any direction. So that's where it's the give and take.
Yeah, I mean, it seems, I guess it seems like this is the kind of thing that, there would be grant funding for this kind of work out there. And I think what you're telling me is that, but the problem is the grant funding can go away. And then the question is, where do you get it? But, I'm not sure. I don't know that we hard fund, it's an interesting use of words, anything because, you know, to your point, the GRT operating budget revenue is so volatile and, you know, to your point, COVID came and our GRT revenue completely dried up. Or as I tell people, you know, completely fell off a cliff and just deep dive and you can't do anything. So it's sort of, I don't know, it's, you know, both kind of have their pros and cons and neither one of them are sure things forever. So I guess I would encourage you to look for grants to do the ARU expansions. And I have to imagine there's money out there, federal or I mean, maybe nonprofit, I don't know. It's probably more federal dollars, I would think, or state dollars for that matter. So. Counselor Cassett.
Follow-up question actually with that, you know, I understand that this has been kind of an Achilles heel for a lot of our programs around not having wraparound social services. You all have established a relationship with DOH at this point, and I'm curious if that conversation has come up, especially since we are talking about a lot of the substance abuse and addiction issues that we know are very interrelated with homelessness. Has that come up in the conversations around, you know, next step? I mean, you know, this, as you mentioned, hold on, I'm going to say it correctly. Nope. Are you going to say it? Go ahead. Buprenorphine. Did I get it?
Sure. Buprenorphine.
Buprenorphine. Okay. That it's supposed to be this holdover to get them into rehab, into services, you know, potentially if we're able to get there, but we know that we don't have enough services there. Has that been discussed with DOH, especially as they're analyzing this pilot program? I mean, I think that that's a real opportunity for us to really advocate with the state around some of the structures that we need their help with. We cannot put back together the mental health care infrastructure. It was decimated during the last gubernatorial administration. And so I would just, I'd encourage you all with that relationship to DOH of really having this conversation about, this is a wonderful pilot. I'm very grateful that this is happening here in the city of Santa Fe. That's wonderful that we are being so forward thinking and moving forward with this. But that's a huge challenge for us. And I just hope that as you're talking to the state, making that very clear that this is going to be one of the Achilles heels of this pilot program, as well as a lot of the other work that you all are working on, that you're trying to do every single day and that you are facing every single day, is that there's just not enough services to support individuals, and you all are the ones, you know, picking up the slack, you and the police department. I mean, you guys are facing this every single day. So just encouragement to use that platform as you're having that discussion and looking at how the pilot is impacted by this. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. And also, I think your association statewide, I'm sure these conversations are happening, and, you know, the power of fire departments across the state and the ability to influence what the state does. much bigger than any one single counselor, I think, in terms of getting these kinds of things. So just to echo what Counselor Cassett said. Any other things on this? If not,
Motion to approve.
Can I just chime in with what Counselor Cassett was saying? I think the all the conversations we've had this afternoon that I think are really productive, that deal with the social services side of public safety, demonstrate that the city and all of our team really is doing a remarkable job to do outreach, to do life-saving interventions, to respond to a complicated situation out on the street. And when they interact with somebody who needs help, the question is, where can they take that person to get the help they need? It's made even more interesting, as Counselor Cassett pointed out, with buprenorphine, because as I understand it, and I think this is a news story waiting to happen, one of the benefits of buprenorphine is that the person to whom it is administered is often, as a result of that, more ready for treatment than they are with other interventions. So it actually becomes an intervention that could directly lead to services, given that they are coming through that experience more prepared to accept a change in their life circumstances, but only if we've got a place where they can go to get that help. So the fire department's doing their part. The innovation around this new life-saving intervention is really important. It sets us up to do the next thing that will actually not only save lives in the moment, but change lives going forward. But there has to be that part of the social service supply chain has to get built out. And I think we should all advocate for that. I don't think it falls on any individual. I think it's really a crying need across New Mexico. So I concur with your assessment, Counselor. You're spot on.
okay, and I wasn't suggesting that, I mean, there's the rebuilding of the behavioral health and the mental health stuff, but there's also, seems to me, this ADU thing is a good thing. It's a model, we're out front on it, and it's something that, you know, the state could help replicate across communities. ARU, sorry. What did ADU, did I say ADU? Okay, well, that would just explain that we're on like day 6 and it's 10:05 and we had council last night, and I'll just keep making excuses. All right, anyway, great conversation. Sorry we can't, as has been the case all day. There's so much we could talk about, and just feel like these opportunities are so short. So we got to figure out how to have these conversations throughout the year and really be able to dive in more with all the things you all are doing. And I appreciate the work and the work of your teams. And Counselor Faulkner tried to make a motion. I'll let her go again.
Motion to approve. Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve this budget. Can we get a roll call, please?
Certainly, Madam Chair. Counselor Cassett.
Yes.
Counselor Faulkner. Counselor Lee Garcia.
Yes.
Chair Romero Worth.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay, really quick before I lose the committee, Monday, we are going to meet at, is it 1 o'clock? And we're gonna talk, we're gonna talk about the resolution. What are we doing?
Madam Chair, we have tentatively scheduled a meeting at 1 p.m. on Monday, April 29th, to review the resolution on the budget as a whole.
So it's basically, we vote on the resolution to be moved to governing body with our seal of approval is what we're doing.
Yes, Madam Chair.
So I don't anticipate that taking too long. I think we've set aside a couple of hours, but I don't think it necessarily is going to require that unless we want to get into deep conversations about things. Am I kind of correct in that?
Madam Chair, we don't have any presentations scheduled on that day.
So we're just talking about the resolution, which was introduced last night at governing body, correct?
Correct.
All right. All right. So thank you, everybody, for hanging with us today. Really appreciate all the work. And with that,